Hello, you guys. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. I am your host, Dr. Jefferson, and this is my co host, Sue Stone. Say hi.
Hello.
Today, we're going to have a pretty interesting conversation around mental health as it applies to men. September is officially Suicide Prevention, Suicide Awareness Month. And one of the major things that I notice as a clinician is that there are more men coming in for suicidal ideation and feelings of helplessness and hopelessness now in the wake of the pandemic. And I feel like the pandemic may have made things a little bit more difficult for them to navigate. We're going to have a couple of different topics that we're going to explore under this particular category. And I want you guys to share your experiences as we navigate these various topics of discussion with the men in your life, yourself, if you happen to be a man, and to give us a little bit of a weigh in on how you feel about these different things that we discussed today. Of course, we'll be exploring the more clinical lens or the clinical scope of things. But if you guys have any particular questions that you would like for us to answer, feel free to post those questions. I feel like we don't have any issue with answering scope issues like scope of coping, basically coping skills, scope of practice kind of things that are surface level on this platform. And I also want to encourage you guys to get the help that you need. Susanna's website is ssrecovery.org. You guys can sign up for an appointment with her. She does render therapy to men and, young men or people that are becoming men. I got this thing on me. Um, and my website is familiarbonds.org, and I deliver those services as well. So I'm going to let Susanna kind of give you guys a little bit of background about some of the, services she offers, services that she offers in her practice. We're also going to invite the producer to share his perspectives on the various questions and the content that we're going to discuss today. And I think that'll be really interesting.
Well, thank you for having me on, Dr. Jefferson. It's always good to see you. Just in terms of what I do, I'm a social worker, and what I strive for in my practice is to work with women, men, boys, kids, family, and couples. So that's what I do. I do individual counseling, couples counseling, family counseling. I also work with clinicians or members who are trying to become a clinician. I work with them to get their licensure. So those are some of the things we have to do. We have to get hours and stuff like that to be able to be considered a clinician. So I work with them to help them understand what this work is about, so that they're able to, when they go out on their own, work with different populations and help folks kind of just be what they want to be. So that's kind of what I do. And a lot of my clients actually have been men, and I currently have a group of men that I work with, particularly, and they're veterans. So they also come with some sort of different take on how men are men, which is what we'll talk about today. So that will be interesting. If there are veterans out there, welcome to come in, sign on, ask questions, give your thoughts, because we're not the expert. You are.
Exactly. So the first area that we're going to kind of break down for you guys, and I thought that this would be something that's really important, because a lot of people are always curious about the different ways that they can find help or find meaningful solutions to resolve the issues that they're going through on a day-to-day. As it relates to men's mental health, we hear all types of things, like especially within the Black and Brown community. Due to the fact that Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson is one of those platforms that it definitely caters to the behavioral health and mental health and awareness of Black and Brown people, and issues that affect us nationwide. I want to be able to highlight that, we've heard a lot of things. There are a lot of stigmas associated with Black men and mental health help. And one of the things that happened over the course of the pandemic, right,
Mm-hmm.
was the development of therapy for Black men. What were you thinking when they first made that website? Gosh, I can't remember her name, but it's a female doctor
Mm-hmm.
who, founded this space for Black men. When that first became a point of contention, a point of interest, what were your thoughts as a clinician?
I mean, I thought that was wonderful. I thought it was really wonderful. I thought it was long overdue.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought maybe this is an avenue that men can actually now feel safe enough to come and share what's going on, what they thought about. And I did think, well, there was a part of me go, should this have been initiated by a female
Mm.
as opposed to a male?
Yeah.
Um, because when we do the work that we do, we try to understand the relationship that person have had with the family, with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that was the intent, that here is a mom presenting with her kids, right? Her sons. Because I
Right.
have sons.
Advocating for her son, because
Yeah.
like oftentimes that's one of the things that comes up for me,
Mhm.
as a mother with young men, right?
Mhm.
As my kids, these things come up for me too, because I'm wondering whether or not there are spaces that they feel not only safe enough to explore and share whatever issues they're having,
Mhm.
but also spaces they feel validated in
Right.
sharing those stories. Because here's the thing, we talk about competency all the
Mhm.
time. As Black clinicians, there are several spaces that have been created, not just during the pandemic or before the
Mhm.
pandemic, but even before then, that are exclusively for Black people who are
Mhm.
clinicians. And it's like, we don't want anybody who is non-Black to be in those spaces. To me, as a person who is multicultural,
Mhm.
I kind of had a lot of mixed feelings about that, because
Mhm.
competency doesn't come from boxing yourself and working with one select group of people and exploring ideas in one setting. True competency comes from exploring people, human interaction as a whole, and then allowing those differences that typically separate and divide people to further expand your understanding of the human condition as it relates to those intercultural issues, right? Subcultural component.
Because I think one of the things, and we had this conversation many times.
Mhm.
One of the things that I noticed for Black clinicians is that if you present a culturally competent or an Afrocentric approach, that you're anti-white, and
Mhm.
that's not what that is about. It's
Mhm.
really not about being anti-white. It's treating someone in the culture and the approach that they're used to, that they grow up with, because that's how you get them to know that stuff needs to get addressed. I understand that, but it's not about being anti-white.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the issues we see, where we've got to have a Black program and we've got to have something else. And what we should be doing as clinicians is helping everyone be able to be the best person they can, regardless of what color they are, in the culture that is important for them, that works for
So
them.
let me ask you this. Do you typically feel like, because you are a Black woman, if there is a white man who approaches you and wants therapy, or a white woman that approaches you and wants therapy, because you're a person who is outside of the white culture in America, do you feel less competent providing services to those people?
No, I don't,
Okay.
because I feel like that for a couple of reasons. Part of it, I'm not totally Black. I
Right.
mean,
right,
so
right,
I
right.
can't deny that part of my heritage.
Right.
There's this whole thing about if you got one drop of blood of Black in you,
Then
you're all
everybody's
Black.
Black.
But
We're
no,
all in
no,
one
no.
pool.
If you see my mother, you would think very differently.
Exactly.
But therapy really isn't about me controlling the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's about me helping this person explore his or her issue. So that's really not about gender or race.
Exactly.
That's really so. But people, I think people of color, because of the trauma they've been through and how they lived through that generationally,
Trust.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
That we have to have our own, or else we're not who we are.
Yeah. But that's big. That says a lot about us as people. Now, to me, it also speaks to enabling. Because when I see clinicians kind of box themselves and then try to move so far away from what has been, peer reviewed and proven to be, sound principles that guide people to healing and the dynamics of healing, what I see is a lack of competence.
Absolutely.
Because then, you become, and I feel like Black people are now, well, not just Black people, but human beings across America and across the globe now, people who are being forced to take these COVID-19 vaccines, right? Think about it like that. So I think that so many people want to advocate for the freedom to choose, and they want more science behind a vaccination, right? But they don't think about that when they think about the way that sometimes we create these very isolating spaces for Black people. And we want to just basically come up with anything, but nothing that's been empirically supported as to how it may or may not help or hinder a person, because therapy can be a very, very difficult space. Okay, so the reason I feel like we should be using evidence-based practices is because these are things that there has been longitudinal studies behind, right? And we've seen the outcome studies. We've seen the, efficacy of it. And we're not just basically making things up as we go. When you're making things up as you go, you become the friend to a client instead of the healer for the client's experience. And I think that men already have this space where for so long, especially Black men, they have been completely denied a platform to think, to feel, to be.
Right.
So they've been completely invalidated for years historically on an emotional scale. So now we want to push a Black man in front of a Black therapist that has no idea what the outcomes may do, what they may be, how they may impact this person and their experience or anything else, simply because the Black clinician is having incongruences in their sense of self as a clinician and their level of competency, trying to find something to identify with. So for me, for a lot of times, these are things that definitely drive my concern in this field. And I've seen things, and I know you've seen things too within these groups.
We've talked about that stuff.
And it's like, oh my God. And I see people who come to me after they have been exposed to these different trial and error approaches, right? And they're more damaged than they were when they even started the journey out. And to me, it makes me question so much of what is grounding the foundational principles for clinicians in this day and age when they are of color.
Yeah, because I think, if you listen to me, you hear I have an accent. People say call it an accent, which means it's very different from an American accent. So I may be a Black woman, but I'm not an American Black woman.
Exactly.
So I think Black clinicians feel if they have a Black client in front of them that the client understands. Both of us understand the life already, so we don't have to talk about that anymore.
And that's interesting.
And that is actually not true, because if I'm sitting with you,
that counter transference is dangerous.
An American and understand the American life,
right?
Not true.
If you're trying to guide my experience or make it fit this narrative, and that has nothing to do with my narrative, that's more dangerous than it is beneficial to the overall journey of healing.
Because what we do is hold people's life in our hand when we sit in this session. They come in because they are on the edge of really hurting themselves or killing themselves. And we, I mean, I don't know any other way how to say it, could push that along.
Exactly.
Based on how we relate. Now, if I'm sitting with a Black clinician and she's talking about the American version of what life looks like, that doesn't fit me.
It forces you further over the edge. If that's what you're struggling
she doesn't
with.
Understand me.
Exactly.
I need another therapist.
That the time that it takes to adapt to what's currently going on, right? What we're currently exposed to. The time that it takes for us to do that when we come into America and we're now trying to not necessarily fully acculturize ourselves, but at
Mhm.
least assimilate to a level to where we have some level of relatability to the people around us and in that society. That's a lot of pressure on anybody.
Absolutely.
It is.
It is.
And I think that there are several different transitions that men make where it's difficult for them. That's why I see that relatability component right there. I see it's difficult for them to now put themselves in different spaces, especially Black men, because you got to think about where they came from.
Right.
So they had to go from, complete segregation after slavery, right? And then move into a place where you're trying to integrate them. So now going through integration, that's a whole period. That's a whole mood. Trying to figure out where they fit in the grand scheme of things. What is their now role as a man in that dynamic, as a Black man in that dynamic? What is their role, not only in their families that they create, their nuclear families, but also family of origin now?
Right.
How do I stay connected, but also do the things that I feel I'm obligated to do for this family, right? I think that there are a lot of things that we're seeing now that has now transitioned as we've seen more modern day men come out, not only of the womb, but into society where they've now been raised by these women post-integration. And a lot of these women, third wave, fourth wave feminist women, have these ideals that they've now vicariously traumatized these young men with. So they're carrying so much weight. And it's just so much. So I think providing them with a lot of different options for therapy is a great way to say, we are here for you. We want to hear what you feel. We want to hear what you think. What are the issues? How can we best help? Right.
And that's how my approach is. If there's a white person sitting in front of me, even Black person,
it should be.
White person,
I was just about to say. So it should be the same across the board,
because he is the one is the bearer of his story.
Yeah, and he's the expert of his life.
Guide him this way as opposed to going that way, but he's got to present his story so that I understand this person sitting in front of me and be able to use some of the skills I've learned to say, let's take a look at this. What does this mean for you?
Exactly. And how is it affecting those different domains where we've explored that you have, some issues with functioning or surviving in?
Because, the reality is, even in slavery times, right? The Black woman was the one who had to take the lead, because if the man did, he would be separated. Right. And I think that's what we still see today. One Black woman still wants to take the lead.
Right.
And then we have this man who is not sure what is my role and how do I need to be. And if I have a mother who's telling me how I need to be,
and now I've married my mother.
Right.
I married my mother, and now I got two. Right.
Yeah, right. And then my daughter.
Exactly.
The big one and the little one.
Yeah.
You're already saying, Daddy, you need to do, Daddy, I want.
And then feeling like he's drawn to her more so than congruence with himself or the wife. And then sometimes that dynamic becomes a power struggle.
Absolutely.
It's so many things. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about some of the men's health matters that come across what we've observed in our cases and our clients. So I want to draw the line of delineation between all of these different components for you guys so you understand what they are, because some people, it's a lot of different ways that we market the services that we provide to people. And I know that I've had a tremendous amount of new clinicians that are just fresh and they're stepping out there and they're very curious about, okay, what is this versus this? Or, you know what, it's all the same. I get that all the time, but it's not.
Right.
Counseling is very much different than therapy. Mentoring is very different than counseling and therapy. Consulting is very different than all three I mentioned. And mental health coaching is very different as well.
And we all do that.
Exactly. And we could all do all of these different things, right? But the service rendered is something completely different. And for how long has it been? Maybe like 10 years. Clinicians have been having an argument and discord amongst themselves. Yeah, about coaches. About coaches, because the word coaching, mental health coaching emerged. And it really emerged in the late 90s. But the last 10 years has been a point of serious pain for some clinicians. They feel very, very unsettled. They feel very much unseated. They get very uncomfortable in those spaces because they're like, oh, that's not regulated. There are
She's not a real therapist.
Yes.
She doesn't know what she's doing.
First thing they say. And it's really interesting to me when I started to enter those spaces and start having those conversations, because I transitioned from medical doctor to psychotherapist. So just hearing some of the feedback, of course, they didn't know my background, right? And they were like, oh, they're not qualified to diagnose anybody. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Well, I could say the same about many of you. But my thing is, like, sitting in those spaces where they don't know what your credentials are. Because for me, I think that entering a conversation with your credentials does something about the positioning, right? It does something to the positioning of the conversation, and people start feeling power dynamics. And I never want a power struggle where I'm trying to gain clarification. So for me, I'm always very curious when I come into a conversation, because I'm curious about what is driving this particular thing this way or that way. And so for me, when I'm asking questions, I'm like, so what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about the power of coaching in this practice, right? In this field of study? Mental health coaching has been something that I feel has been needed for a very long time, especially when we talk about the transitions that men made in the 80s, considering the 80s, the late 80s especially, happened to be that time where so many men were making babies and running out. So the birth of the age or the rise of the single mother thing, okay? And I feel like this is a time where men really needed the mental health coaching component, and it wasn't there, especially for a Black man. And so therapy is where we get to the really deep-seated issues.
The undercover, the stuff that's hidden.
Under the surface, not coping, but we go underneath the coping strategies, the basic surface level stuff. For example, surface level stuff could be an argument. You find yourself in arguments every day with your girlfriend, right? How can I communicate better, right? That would be surface level coping skills. We would teach you how it is that you could practice active listening, reflective listening, feedback loops, what they means, the importance of those things in communicating during conflictual situations. We could talk about safe communication and what that looks like. We could talk about safe words, all of these things, right?
And that's the counseling.
Yep. That's the counseling part. That's the surface level. And so let's say that after you have been practicing that, you're still experiencing said anxiety as it relates to returning to those conversations, or even having those conversations with a person that you very much care about. Then we would want to dig a little bit deeper, and we'd want to find out, what is it that this is triggering for you? So what is this? What is the idea of communicating with a person that's important to you, that can see you for who you are? What is that? What about that communicating component takes you to another space where you previously had some level of trauma, whether it's a big trauma or a small trauma? And in floating back and exploring those particular things, what we do is keep you in a safe space and keep you grounded so that we can remember those things, re-explore those things, and dig deep into them from a different place. So now you have a different position, because now you are the outside observer of you and your various experiences that may have traumatized you. And it's different when we look at that, right? Because trauma, when we're in a dance of anything, whether it's trauma or it's a positive form of distress, we can't see what's around us. Right? In the military, there is this thing we say, cover your six, right? You got my six, I got yours. So that means that we're going to cover what's behind you, and you're going to cover what's behind us. So we're both looking out for one another. So consider the process of you doing therapy, having your six covered, but not only your six, but all directions, your 9 and your 12 as well, right? And so you have somebody that's looking out for you every single direction, but not only that, they're guiding you through this exploration very intentionally. So you're not looking to relive the experience. You're looking to observe where the incongruences that led to the trauma happened. and then restructuring the trauma, looking at that in a different way. It's so many different levels to that, but therapy is very intensive, it's very intentional, and it's very deep seated. So not surface level stuff, even though sometimes we ask those surface level questions. Now, if men are exploring therapy, I'm just going to be very honest. They have gotten so far down, so far off, so far away from their goals in life, and where they thought they see themselves aligned in their life when it comes to success and achievement and the potential for that. They don't see, they're pretty much helpless. They're like, they don't see another way out but healing, right?
And it's interesting, if they have to come into therapy, what does that mean? I mean, what is the work it takes to say,
to get there?
I need to call a therapist?
Oh my God, yes.
The feeling, and I'm not a man, I live with, married to a social worker who,
at some point,
that's where I get my work. That's where I get my answers sometimes.
Right.
It's like for a man who's doing this work, looking at himself. Right?
Oh my God, yes.
So, but what does it take to get to that piece of where, oh my God, I need help? Because men teach men that you don't need help. You are supposed to do and know. And it's like, you're a human being first.
So do you think that men teach men to not need therapy, or do you think it's women? I mean, at the source of it all.
Well, I think it's probably both. I think we teach the men, from woman's way of learning how to be a woman and what it means to have a man and a husband and a boyfriend in life. We get that, and then we teach our sons that this is how you're supposed to be as a boy, as a man, without him allowing him to learn that from a man. Because the mom is a major caregiver, right? So what this kid gets, everything that he gets in the first few years of his life, really is from mom. Dad just come home and say, how was your day? He's cute. And he says, hi, Daddy, hug him and kiss him. And then mom puts him to bed.
So that's what I was getting to. Like, because we know that children innately, people, human beings, they bond primarily with the person that is the carrier. So those are your initial attachment bonds. So while in utero, when your personality is initially developing, the attachments are either secure, insecure, up on the fence. We're trying to figure it out. Let's see what happens after the baby gets here. A lot of those different things that are going on as far as when it comes to congruence of self, like developing components of self while they're in utero, teaches them what they're going to be. When a mom learns that she's having a son, there is something that happens with women. And I'm not sure how many women really recognize that this is happening for them. But, my years with maternal fetal counseling has given me so much insight to the congruence. There is something that goes off inside of the mom's brain, and her neurons start firing signals about strength, power, dependability.
I know for me, I thought in my head, I'm so excited I'm having a son first.
Yes.
Because this is my
power dynamic. There you go. Yes.
And then we'll have the daughter. Because guess what? He will take care of his sister.
Exactly. See? So that idea that he's going to be responsible for taking care of somebody, he's going to be the provider. It comes from us first. Right. And we don't realize it. And here's the thing, when these men are born, we start the confusion, identity confusion and insecurity the moment we start to give them our breast, and then we start to codify them in some other instances while the male is trying to guide them and construct them in a different way. So the identity confusion, the first moments of insecurity and things like that, they start to happen then. And typically the baby is between 2 and 3 years old, because the male figure in the child's life is expecting for his son to develop certain features. Right. And so even if the parents are married, there is a sense of, why are you crying? Stop crying. Now, there is a difference in why are you crying? Stop crying, and use your words, right? We have to put children in language-rich environments so that they can thrive at the highest rate when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
the way they relate to the world around them. And I feel like that's a very, very important component of the process. Now, that's getting to the deeper seated issues, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Now, counseling is the surface level. We talked about that. Therapy is what we just talked about, getting to the more deep seated things. Mentoring is a different component altogether as well, and it's different than coaching. So mentoring men looks like what? Guiding men, giving them advisement on how it is that they should be shaping the different areas of functionality or the different areas they're responsible for being in their life. And every once in a while, they may come to you and they may need some hands-on coaching during the mentor process. So coaching is more hands-on. Like if you think about what happens in the basketball, football programs, soccer programs, when they're teaching a skill, because mentoring them, telling them a thing, right? It's not the same as teaching them.
And I think that's what you see in parenting in America. That the mother is responsible for the kid in his first, through kinder, maybe through first six, maybe, maybe middle school. And then the dad is supposed to now take over.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And then,
but even in other cultures, like in our cultures, right? If you think about it, fathers are very much the primary parental person at the age of 3. So mothers are the ones that are considered to be the primary custodian in American culture. And we wonder why so many men, not only Black men, but so many men struggle with their sense of self and congruence.
Because they are given the thoughts and the behaviors of the female when they were male.
Yep.
And the dad takes a back seat to all of this. And part of it is because the woman does not allow him to move into the position of being the man and the father that he's supposed to be, and the mentor
without interruptions. Exactly.
Of his son.
Yep. And because that's another reason.
Better with the daughters. They really give them.
They do.
They give them.
They do. I find that to be so interesting.
And we never let go of that boy. We want to raise him to be the right kind of man.
Right, which is to me very, very interesting when I'm really going through and navigating the issues that present with men's issues in therapy. Because here's the thing. The one thing that I found to be the most interesting thing, and this just this past week, I had how many? 12 different men, 13 different men present with the same story as it relates to the way that their mother saw them seeking their mother's approval, and then the way their father saw them and what it meant for them to seek their father's approval. So give us a sec. We'll get to your comment. The producer is going to speak in a moment because he is a male, and I want him to be able to weigh in on some of these areas that we have mapped out talking points for tonight as well. But I wanted to make sure that we got you guys a really clear idea of what these different components are as it relates to men getting help in the mental health field. Hey, Miss Sandy, how are you? And once we kind of get that ironed out, we'll move forward and we'll, ask some questions to you guys. While you're pondering your thoughts there, go ahead and let us know how you feel about the idea of therapy in general, whether you're a male or female. And then tell me how you feel about men as it relates to getting the help in therapy or coaching or mentoring, consulting, etc. So we covered what mentoring is. We talked about where we see the first remnants of mentorship in men's lives. Now we're going to talk about consulting. Consulting is the point where men are responsible for making decisions, whatever kind of decisions those are. Women too. Business decisions, life decisions, sometimes relationship decisions, right? And you just might need to iron out a couple of things just to see whether or not this is something that you are ready, prepared to step into, if there are additional steps you need to take prior to stepping into and seating yourself in those spaces safely and beneficially for all parties, that kind of stuff. And you see that more often than you will ever see a man embrace all the rest of these things.
Because
historically,
that's what he's taught.
Yep, that he's the authority figure and he
Mhm.
only consults.
Mhm. He doesn't raise his
Yep.
children as
Yep,
boys. He consults
yep,
and says, "This is what you need to do when they get to a certain age."
and wait for him to do it. Like it's
Right.
common sense. I love it. Love it. That's common sense. Common for who?
You know.
Tell me where I did this.
You know.
I was playing with trucks my whole life.
It's a 15-year-old who you a young man. No, you're not a young man.
Right. You know?
You're really not a young man.
Yeah, but I mean, if we think about it at 14 to 15, actually at age 12, if we're talking about, we go back to pre-biblical times leading up to the Bible's development, why it is that the age of 12 was the age of maturation where a man is responsible for his own sins. The reason is because longitudinally, for the longest of time throughout history, and even now in some cultures, like in Germany, kids are so independent at 8 years old. Okay. And so the thing is, you got a different society and a different idea in American culture that shapes the age of maturation. So if a male is between the ages of 11 to 13, then he should be a young man because he should be developing his skills of independence, because he should have had all of those things resolved if he had the properly seated family of origin. But we've identified how a lot of the issues in the family of origin contribute to the prevalence of the issue. Right?
So developmentally, he's not there.
Hey, official urban therapist, how are you?
Come on in.
Right. So let's get to that piece about mental health coaching. Mental health coaching, like I mentioned before, is when you have somebody kind of walking you through the steps that, are required for you to be seated in a particular space of your own ownership of your mental health. Now, oftentimes, said both of y'all in the same room is an honor.
We believe
it or not, we are in the same room more often than you think.
Yeah, I'm not gonna really touch it.
Exactly, But so the thing is, like, when people are going through the process of coaching, it's almost like a step-by-step but guided process, right? So clinicians are then more hands-on. You might hear more feedback from your clinician versus the way that we present when we're counseling or providing therapy, more so because therapy is more about observation, guiding and constructing the reconstruction of the areas of trauma that we explore with you through the process of healing. So we don't do a whole bunch of advising. Right? Because we aren't the experts. Now, when you come to us as a coach, you're coming to us to get skills that will help you resolve the failures. You failed at a particular thing that that we specialize in people achieving these outcomes, right? And so you're coming to us so that we can kind of guide and construct, bring it in, if you will, so that you have better outcomes, improved outcomes, and you operate from a place of vast knowledge now, right? So we're teaching you, holding your hand, sometimes showing you how to do the different things that you need to do in order for you to be successful in that different component, whatever that area of your life is. And sometimes your mental health therapist could encompass one or all of these particular things, depending on where you are. But it all starts when you decide to conscientiously make that decision that, okay, I need some help. And then you come in for a full-on assessment. Assessments should take 2 hours, an hour and a half to 2 hours. Now, I put that out there because I think it's important for us to give you guys that piece, because what I get, and I'm not sure what your clients are telling you, but what I get from God, if I had to count, it'd be ridiculous. Okay. Is that, people just jumped into therapy. There's no way to just jump into therapy.
Right. There's no way to walk in and start talking about your mother.
Yeah. No. We can't do that. It's impossible. A competent therapist must do a comprehensive history taking. very similar to what you do when you go to your doctor's office and
Mhm.
you're reporting all these things, but you're also having a discussion about the history that as it relates to the treatment that you're going to get and what you're presenting with symptoms of.
Mhm.
We have to collect a lot of information, and during that information collection process, oh my God,
Mhm.
we're talking about deep-seated trauma exploration,
Mhm.
explaining to you what trauma is, navigating the different areas where you're responsible for showing up and being a part of you, all of you, whatever of
Mhm.
you, and what that functionality looks like, exploring every single type of relationship that you've had, exploring the process of your mother being pregnant with you, the pregnancy and delivery process and developmental milestones. We're covering everything. Okay, sex
Mhm.
history, sexual partner history, intimacy history,
Domestic
rape,
issues.
yes, domestic
Mhm.
violence, legal issues, every single thing that has ever happened over the course of your lifespan is explored. Do you think that they can happen in an hour?
And even the assessment is just asking you. It's really not delving
Yeah,
into it. It's
yeah,
asking you about these things happen.
exactly.
What was your fate? What kind?
Right, and what did it look
How
like for
did that
you?
look like for you? That's right.
Um, we're not even doing the deep seated stuff, and
Mhm.
sometimes these diagnostic interviews can go sometimes over 2 hours. So I say a well seated clinician can do it if that's all you're doing all day.
Okay.
I give you an hour and a half. Look, I got a record. I've got a record with an hour and a half, you guys. But that's a person that had very, very surface level presentation, a person that was very young. So it's no way, not enough relationship history.
Mhm.
An hour and a half, a kid at 14. Okay.
Mhm.
There is no way an adult person presenting for therapy is going to be able to give a clinician everything they need in less than 2 hours. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah. And if you've got somebody sitting in front of you that can't tolerate that, we can talk about coming back.
Yeah.
Because you have your
Because you have
client
to
there.
have that. Yeah, you
Mhm.
have to have that information collecting process.
Mhm.
We cannot do therapy efficiently and competently without collecting all of the details of your, because what I just said is therapy is about the deeper seated issues.
And it's not that we want to know your business.
Right. It's
Right.
just that this is
Mhm.
something that goes towards us making an
Mhm.
accurate and complete diagnosis, because that's the other component you want to think about. People look at diagnoses as a label that's a negative connotation and put a stigma with it.
Mhm.
But the realities are they help us understand the issues that you're presenting with so that we can externalize them, identify the triggers, identify where these issues are happening, which domains they're happening, so that we can alleviate the issues and eventually mitigate the symptom presentation altogether. So that process is lengthy for a reason, and you want somebody that's going to be comprehensive. So we've covered those components. Now let's delve into mental health matters. So, Susanna, do you want to start this one and talk about some of the mental health matters that present in therapy?
Well, I know some of the things that I work with men who I know have a lot of trauma, but what they present with is substance issues or unable to take care of themselves in terms of being able to pay their bills
Mm-hmm.
or maintain a budget. So those are the things that I get. And so men would come in and talk about, well, I make good money, but why can't I pay my bills? Why aren't I paying my bills? Or I have a if they trust you enough, they'll bring the relationship. The relationship doesn't happen at the beginning, by the
Exactly,
way.
exactly.
They will
Most
talk,
men are like,
it's the
not telling
functional
you that.
stuff, the
Yeah.
money stuff, the house stuff, and they look at how you relate to them, and then they'll start to talk about the relationship, and then they'll start to talk about how the wife looks like mom.
Yeah.
You'll get all that stuff. So the other piece is they'll tell you that they were not like feeling really okay. I'm not feeling well. So you kind of have to wonder what is well.
Right.
Not
What is that
feeling
for you?
well. Are you sad? Are you upset? Are you depressed? Because when you get to the depressed word, he tears up. And that's
Exactly.
not okay in his head for a man to do tear up
Exactly.
because he's been taught
to
That
put
men-
that shelve it. There's
men do
yeah.
not cry because
Mhm.
you're not a man if you cry. And part of our work is to say you're a human being if you cry, because everybody cries.
Mhm.
And then that becomes the work that you have to want to talk to them about. Where did they learn that from? But I get men who comes in and want to look at the logistical piece of life. How do I
Mhm.
handle my money? How do I deal with my job? How do I make, how do I get advancement? How, my clients are talking about how do I get a house?
Yeah.
Because my clients might be coming off the street. So
Mhm.
I'm just going to stay here. They've got goals. I'm going to just stay here for a year and then I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to help them move on.
Even though they get real comfortable because we're creatures of habit, we want to
Right.
just stay here because
Absolutely, they've been
I
there
found
for
out
8
that
years. You haven't moved on yet.
exactly.
You're waiting on
What's
that
that
right
about?
time to get a house.
Exactly.
Right. Or make a little more money. So men will talk to you about, logistical stuff.
Yeah, surface level.
So, and our role is to figure out how
How
does
do we go
that
deep?
connect
Yeah.
with how you have been as a person, what are the lessons you've learned in your life from your mom and from your dad.
Right.
Right?
And not only
Your
that, from
uncles?
society too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From your boss, from that coach, that football coach, that basketball coach. What did you learn from that stuff?
And when you bring those specifics up, sometimes those are where their traumas take place.
Absolutely.
Because I've had a more prevalent, group of men presenting for issues around rape trauma as it relates to the men that were supposed to be mentors and coaches in their lives when they were kids. And that's another thing in the Black men community that, we're not supposed to have this happen to us because we're men and we're looked up to as that person who's supposed to be the savior, the knight, in shining armor, protector, right, all that stuff. So I'm going to, before I give my commentary, I'm going to bring on the producer and I'm going to let him share his insights about some of the mental health matters that he feel like are prevalent in males that he's seen in his life over his tenure, and then also some of the things that he feels like he wants to share that he's experienced and some of the things that he's overcome in his life and his tenure, and how he feels about mental health. By the way, while you guys are watching, you need to also be letting us know how you feel about the idea of therapy. Okay, this one right here, right? So let us know how you feel about it. And Miss Sandy, I do see your comment. We're gonna get to it. Just give me just a moment. I'm gonna bring him on so he can share his insights, and so that way we can get the perspective of a male. And I will open it up in about 30 minutes or so for you guys to come on to the panel if you wish to share some of your personal insights, or if you guys have some deeper questions that you'd like to explore on the show before we get off. Okay. Okay, so go ahead. I'm over here. So I don't know why you guys can't hear him. Hold on just a sec. Just so
that was my take on that little part.
No, but you might have to repeat that.
Yeah, you may have to repeat that. That was intense, you guys. Hold on just a sec so I can figure out what's going on with his mic over there. Yeah, well, we've got to give the textbook definitions because that helps us to better draw in the conclusions for. Yeah, it was always the same. However, I like the fact that you stated, you know, what your feelings around that were. So just hold on just a sec. Let me get his mic going.
Determine what it meant to us back then.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, look at my picture. I can see me twice. Hold on a sec. let me shift spaces. But you guys can continue to let us know what you guys feel, how you guys feel about therapy. Okay, let me see if I can help
You got a game up. You put that in my lap.
Can you hear from the headset?
I mean, I can.
Okay. Well, you can hear me from my ear over there.
I thought I wasn't hearing him through you.
Right, because my face is moving over there. Hold on a sec.
I heard him sitting over there, but I don't think I heard him.
All right, so you can hear something, right? Let me test this. I don't know if this one is the right thing to pick.
Well, we could trade place. You know, he can come and say what he got to say right here because he's sitting next to you.
Possibly, we could do that, but
We can go back and forth.
Or hold on, so what I'll do is I'll turn up my mic and I'll put it on both forward and back so that it can reflect on both ends. How can you guys hear me right now? The people who are listening, how well can you hear me right now? Type of 1 in the chat if you can hear me pretty good.
Why can't we see the producer? But he's out.
It's darker. They want to see you. They want you to come over here. How well did you guys hear me when I was over there? It's because it's darker in that space in the room, like super dark, as a matter of fact. So you really can't this, you know. So you guys could hear me good over there. Okay, great. So I'll have you share from over there because obviously they can hear both ends. Let me see. I may be on front and back already. Nope. All right. So that should make us super loud. So let me
turn the volume.
Dr. Cloud on Inspector Gadget. Okay, so go ahead. Share what you said again. The breakdown.
Mm-hmm. You know that was in his head. It's like you can't repeat that stuff twice.
You know, I mean that was a fantasy, right?
Yeah.
But he is a person of words. I will say that. Like
I would do my best to do it again.
Okay, so go ahead and give your breakdown of those different areas.
Back off what you all were discussing.
Mm-hmm.
Back in my day, therapy meant this right here to me. It meant sex, drugs, alcohol, or gambling. That was a therapeutic way out or in to navigate through life problem situations. And counseling was more meant for your school and your church and activities like that.
Mm-hmm.
And mentoring was boy club, girl club activities and things like that. And consulting was more likely from your siblings, friends, or people you know in your circle.
Mm-hmm.
And mental health coaching was straight up 12 looking for your mom, your dad, whoever. You have to get your mind right component there.
Don't you ever do that again?
Well, first of all, you said an ass whooping first.
Yeah.
So now you're going to change it. Now you're going to clean it up.
But you can use whatever words to you because this is your experience.
Yeah.
Right.
You gonna make sure you don't do that no more.
In front of me, at least, right?
You remember that?
No. He said no more.
Well, we know that didn't work, right?
But it did. It obviously worked to some extent
No,
because
we did it behind your back. We still did it. Right?
We were so far behind the loop on that stuff. We
Mhm.
had to get a line of bank accounts and credit accounts
The
and
consulting.
things, trying to keep life insurance on the book.
Mm-hmm.
so the consultative piece was completely missing from
So you did
that
get
generation for you.
healthcare. You thought about the basic components of healthcare, not the middle part of it, like the employee assistance program type stuff.
Right.
That's what the middle component sits at.
Wow.
You don't use it unless you think it's something wrong with yourself versus you're going to get a checkup for your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
People don't do that.
Mm.
So.
Because
They just
you
don't.
see that, right? You see in families where they have the uncle who, is distant from others. He can't talk to anybody. He talks to himself.
Mhm.
And generally, you might think he needs to be in the hospital, but he's kept upstairs, and everybody would bring him his food, and everybody have an uncle or an aunt.
That used to be in that position. Like, how do you guys
That's
feel about
mental
that?
health.
Exactly. But that's the way that it was dealt with back then, because you got to think about it. You isolate, and it's still very much real
Like
now.
when we came up, you ever have an episode of something happen to you for you to get mental health treatment.
A nervous
And
breakdown.
it was considered to be a bad thing. It wasn't for the outcome generated to be good. It was you
Right.
got something wrong with you.
That's right.
So for you, would you say that a rape would constitute as something happening to a person?
Yeah.
So back then, a man would have sought help if he was raped.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
woman
A woman.
seeking help if she were raped too.
Well,
Do you think a woman would have sought out help if she was raped as well?
yeah.
Okay.
Back then.
Wow.
Mental health help, not just going to the ER for
But
physical.
they have to impose it on you. They won't ask for it. We know how to ask for that.
Okay.
So now you ask for it because it's a known practice.
Okay. So do you feel like
Mhm.
the awareness within your community and your family of origin was sufficient for a person to know that there are particular situations that justify a man or a woman getting mental health assistance?
I say again, it had to be something very traumatic, or some episode that just flipped or something happened out of the ordinary. Then you would get that. First you would get arrested. They wouldn't call no like they do now, crisis line. That's
Mhm,
like that. You
right.
get locked up. They're gonna go down there, go from there.
Mm-hmm.
So now they'll call her before they call the cop.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that no more.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So-
mental health issues back then. You was crazy.
What do you think?
And that person was protected.
Yeah.
That person was protected in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. They hear that stuff from me, from the family, and everybody else. So it was a shielding type thing.
Mhm.
Either you crazy for a check or you're crazy outright.
Either you're crazy for a check.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did y'all hear that?
Yeah.
Mm.
People does that. They play crazy to get a check.
Mm.
And it worked.
We see that today.
Yeah, we see that more.
Because somebody asked the question about sort of similar.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna address. Miss Sandy's question about the insanity component. Yeah, we're gonna get to that, and I wanna cover that when we get down there to some of the common issues.
But I just remember the movie Soul Food. You remember they had the uncle who we would diagnose as schizophrenic. They didn't put him away in a mental health institution.
Right.
They kept him upstairs. Never mind, he had all the money in his TV, right? But he was protected.
But do you know why?
Taken care of. Because mental health, I believe that the Black community really doesn't trust mental health.
There you go.
We've grown up to believe that we can take care of each other. So when the little girl tells grandma that uncle molested her,
Yep.
Grandma said, "Go wash it off."
Yep.
And keep the little girl away from.
Don't
uncle.
talk about that.
Right.
Don't talk about that.
Right.
That constant.
But keep her away from uncle from then on, and watch uncle till she dies.
Exactly.
For any little girl that comes around him, because he did something inappropriate. But we know.
Therefore increasing her own anxiety.
Mhm.
preventing her from living out her life as it's meant to be intended to be lived out, right? So we're just furthering the deeper issues within the systemic context instead of healing the ones that need to be healed and providing therapeutic support for those people that are providing therapeutic support and familial support for the person that has experienced the trauma firsthand. Now, what I want to talk about is how many men in the system in your systems have opened up to you guys about getting some professional help and in navigating their issues. So how many men have you had contact, for the people that are watching, how many men have you had contact with have said to you, hey, I'm going to go and get a therapist, or I need to get this resolved, or I think I need therapy, or I think I'm having a breakdown, or excuse me, do you think something is wrong with me? I want to answer. I want to explore that. I want you guys to answer that question as we move into addressing some of the most common issues that present by men currently for us in a clinical situation. And I think we're going to also address the larger issue. Miss Sandy, I see your comment. This is where it kind of comes into play. For me, the vast majority of issues, even prior to the pandemic, and this is one of the things that Susanna and I were having a conversation about, men's issues, because that's how we label them, right? In marketing, we label presenting issues the way that the public would generally see that particular thing when they're thinking about getting help, right? Men's issues, women's issues, teenage issues, phase of life issues, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the number one thing that I would say, even before the pandemic became an issue, that I've seen males presenting in therapy and counseling for, has definitely been issues that relate to women in their lives. Like, period. Especially in the moments where they are suicidal. Helpless and hopeless, not able to find it within themselves to resolve or to cope with what's on the surface or whatever. But it always has something to do with the women in their lives in some capacity.
And you would hear, when you ask what brought you in here, my wife said you need to come in or else the marriage is over.
Yep.
Go back to what
my girlfriend says.
About the mom and being the first one
to imprint that.
I would have that firsthand.
Yep.
That's true. They stay with you a long time.
Because I've never, in all my years, had a male client said, my dad told me I needed to get into therapy. I've never heard that.
Well, I've had one.
Oh, wow.
To this day.
I've never
heard that. Thousands of men, you guys. I've had one to this day, and it was only most recently. And I was like, your dad? What's his number? What is his number, sir? I'm going to call your dad right now and tell him, thumbs up to you. Okay. You've done a great job. Like, look at you. Congratulations. But and the thing is, like, there are not too many men that would encourage their sons to get help. We talked about the fact that because Therapy for Black Men was founded by a woman, one of the things that comes up for us is, that woman's advocating for her sons, right? It could even be for her husband, but her sons will be the centralized focus, simply because women, for whatever reason, feel the need in this generation of Black women to take the lead in the relationship and make sure that the family is protected, provided for adequately. And that's beyond me.
What about she's doing that because she feels that he is not capable of? And it has nothing to do with whether he's capable or not. But that's really about her.
Man, go to therapy. How we look at
it.
Okay. So do you think that if your wife is telling you need to go and get therapy, what's the first thing that comes up for you?
That's a sign of weakness. That's just it's attacking your man who's your family.
You know what? On a personal level, I'm going to agree with that, because I think when in times past, when like I have a friend of mine, very, very close friend of mine, and I won't mention his name, but it was a very, very sad situation watching him go through all of the things that he's gone through. But, you know, as a person who is a friend, let me tell you something, guys. I do not, yeah, I'm a clinician and everything, but I do not and will not work without being paid and off the clock and in my personal life. Okay. Outside of my pro bono work, not doing that. So I was watching him, observing him and his wife and their relationship. My husband and I, we had, you know, first the relationship started with just he and I. We connected, and he and I became friends and brought our spouses into the index of that friendship, and it became like amazing. Great, you know, it was a great level of connectivity and things like that. I thought it was a great supportive context, because how often do you see married people make friends of the opposite sex with the intention to become friends and have support? Because it was all about support. Now, well, for me, I gotta tell you guys, when he first met me, and I didn't know this, and I was like, well, yeah, you know, we could definitely link up, you know, maybe we could go bowl. My husband loves bowling. I'm not gonna bowl with him. Just not gonna do it. I'm gonna watch you do what you do, and I'm pretty good, but I just don't want to do it. You know why? My husband was like super competitive. Super competitive, and it brought out the worst in me. I will not compete with you. I don't want to play anymore. Like, so I was like, I divested from the idea of compete. I was like, I gotta find somebody for him to compete with when my best friend moved, you know, further away from us, and he can no longer travel, you know, to come up there and just to play games of bowling, you know, and kick his ass for me. But so finding him, and we were talking about bowling one day, and I had bought some new bowling shoes and a new bowling ball and things like that for my husband, and my staff and I, we were having that conversation. He was like, oh, you bowl? I was like, no, my husband does. And I was like, well, we're gonna have this tournament, blah blah blah, all this stuff. And we exchanged numbers, we started conversing, things like that. So his intentions were to get my husband's wife. And he was married too. He had been married for 15 years, I think, at the time. Okay. I didn't know that then. I probably found that out maybe 10 years, 11 years later. Okay. And he was transparent about it, because I was like, you know, sometimes you make some comments and I'm just like wondering if you know I'm going to curse you out, or if that's what you're looking for. Because I'm a very, you know, I look. If it's on the dome, it's coming out the mouth. Okay, that's just how I am. And so he was just like, well, you know, I just figured if I keep trying, maybe if I kept trying, then eventually you're going to fold. No, you're going to continue to get cursed out. You see, you get the same response. It's either that you're insane or you're insane. But over the course of us watching his relationship, my husband and I, and us being in same spaces with one another and listening to the things that his wife would say, right? Even my husband noticed
that he needed mental health something.
It didn't even take me to say anything first. My husband finally, he came to me one day and he was like, wifey, so like, what do you think is wrong with your friend? Like, you know, he don't hear his wife. Like, she obviously is not happy.
So I had a question about that. So what made your husband ask you as opposed to kind of have a conversation with him? Because all four of you are
it was
after a relationship, right?
Well, yeah, but it was after a dinner. We had a dinner and they had a heated exchange. And he left. He had great energy, and she called a cab. And my husband he was very attentive in that way. Okay. He was very attentive in that. He was like, what's going on here? Like, he opened the door for her. She goes get in the cab. What's going on? What's really going on? That was before Uber and all that, y'all. So I was like, I don't know. That ain't my business. That was me. But just get in the car. Let's go. But when we had that conversation later that night, it was more, Yeah, I noticed because I had been having conversations with him because he would call me oftentimes when he was on the road, and we talk about his experiences and his relationship with her, and we would talk about some of the things. Remember after he told me, yeah, well, I have a lot of male friends since I was a kid, like, but so for during that conversation, right? One of the conversations, he had mentioned that his wife is, what did he say? Ungrateful. He said, she's so ungrateful. She doesn't appreciate me. And this is one of the things that I do see men come into therapy for more often than not.
Yeah.
She doesn't appreciate me. She thinks I'm crazy. She keeps trying to get me to go to therapy.
She wants me to be like this way.
Right. And I'm paying for her to go to school, all of this stuff. Like, she don't have a scholarship. I'm paying out of my pocket. Like, I'm working and I take care of us. She doesn't pay any bills. She doesn't have to do anything. She doesn't even have to clean up anymore. I pay a maid to come in. At this conversation, I said, you know, have you ever thought about maybe you do need therapy? Because he was like, she thinks I'm crazy and I need therapy. That was an insult to him. And I was like, wow, like, she's trying to help you. And I've been noticing the fact that you have some real issues. Like, I knew that he was struggling with narcissistic personality disorder. I could see it from 3 miles away, but you're still a person, right? And so they're great people, very charismatic people, great people to be around. Now,
you around them, not them around you.
Yeah, because, you know, the thing is, bringing this all in, this is one of the main issues that I see men come into therapy and say, okay, my wife has got to go. My wife thinks I'm crazy. She really needs to be in here, not me.
Well, it's like anything about intervention.
I've had so many men do it though. Listen, I had a man come in and tell me that the identified patient would be his son, and his son was suicidal. And we needed to talk about ways. These are his therapeutic goals. We needed to talk about ways for him to deal with his son's suicidal behavior that he felt was stemming from his wife's depression. You ever thought about it being you? So while we were in therapy, though, like exploring the things that presented and the history and things like that, cultural dynamics and things like that, I think he definitely understood by the end of therapy, but
that he was deep.
Exactly. And his family refused to participate in his bouts of therapy because they were like, he's the one that needs it. Dr. J is him. I'm like, I already know that, but I ain't gonna tell you that. Like, right? But so, you know, for me, it's interesting how these men can have all these issues going around, these red flags, and people in their system telling them, hey, you know, you could benefit from talking to somebody, right? And they still find that to be offensive. So you're right. I do feel like you're right about that. And I feel like a lot of their issues do surround some level of the relational context they have, like with women. Even the psychosis.
And maybe
they're supposed to cry, they're supposed to do that. That plays a part.
And like you said, substance use. For how long do you use that as therapy, as a coping mechanism, and then finally realize, like, you know what, this stuff is just not working anymore, and I need something more because when I'm no longer high, this shit's still here. Right. So for you, Susanna, what do you think is like something that's a real common issue that men come in with outside of that? All of that?
No, I mean, I think I have had men come in and say, I'm really depressed. I don't know why. You know, oh, I don't like my job because my boss is over demanding. My boss is wanting all this stuff, and that's really making me really angry and upset. I go home and I can't unwind, and I gotta have something to unwind, and I need a new job. I can't deal with this because it's making me depressed.
Right.
So it's always something external that's making you feel the way you are, as opposed to that's what the therapy is, because we help them take a look at
What's on the
what's on
inside?
the inside.
Well, for me, you got the old school values and the modern woman ways that kind of make a man look crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Really,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a clash of culture and mental state of mind
Mm-hmm.
to try to make it work. You know, so it's touchy.
Yeah, because we've had conversations really about how women really
See, women have
tries
evolved way
to.
faster than men have. We still way behind the curve in that area with y'all.
Well, I think people wants men to believe that,
Yeah, because it's
but
not
that's
really
not
about.
true.
Yeah,
Man,
men
that's
have
true,
evolved
but, you know,
too.
when y'all make it seem like it's true when we meet women, the modern day women,
You
the perception of the have not and stuff like that, and the way they separate things.
and it's not that we make it seems like that; it's that you think it's like that
Exactly.
because you've been
And
taught
Yeah, some
that
man
men
said
are supposed to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
Like men is supposed to wear the pants. Men is
Right.
supposed to make more money. Men is supposed to be the one go out, do what they want, come home, and the wife be available. And life has changed, right?
Exactly.
The wife make more money.
We have for
She's
a long period of time. You all evolved.
But not really.
Well,
You have
no.
evolved too,
I
but
mean, but not-
but you for men, what I noticed is that like if you go back to what Kevin Samuels talks about on his channel, and we've covered some of the stuff. We finally covered a call that he
y'all
did with the
better
male.
have
Okay. Here is the thing. Men have evolved in their mindsets to a certain extent, but they refuse to remove themselves from the position of the leader. So they still want women to come in and be emotionally available for them, physically available for them, and all of those things. And they want the woman to do the part of providing for significant, bills in the household. Now, but they don't want the woman to be opinionated, given a seat at the table for overall bigger decision making, leading, and stuff like that.
Because that's what.
Well, not really. It's a
what
modern man and a modern woman.
That's what he's been taught. That's how men teach men how to understand to be a man. Your role is to be the provider, right? So you provide, you profess, and you protect. And if you have a wife who is providing and protecting and professing, then what are you? Right?
Exactly.
So that's why men need to feel needed in relationships because they're not getting that.
You all doing that better than some men do.
But it's
on the average. I mean, like they ain't nothing.
Right.
So that's about the men taking a look at standing back and saying she's taking my role, when in fact you are the one who needs to step into
and take ownership and
that
leadership
provider.
Yep.
And in fact, or maybe even recognizing that both of you are providers.
Well, it's a power stroke, man.
That's the point, though. That's what I'm getting at. So that's what I'm getting at. So you're either the male's mentality has shaped to.
And modern women don't submit.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You can't have a woman submit if you want a woman to be your equal in providing. Those are two things that you're always going to run into issues with. So the thing is, you cannot have a woman who is cooperative with you, who is going to submit to you, if you don't have the role of the man who is going to protect, provide.
Yeah.
And right. So the thing is, if you are not that male, a provider male, you don't have that submission woman. You don't have that. So you're either equals or you're properly seated in the hierarchical roles that allow you to be successful longitudinally in relationships. D'Amico's is, and I should have brought him on, but he's one who talks about that too, as he's doing his experiment on women in Atlanta. If you guys are in Atlanta and you're single, stay away from him, okay?
But the thing is, right, Dr. Jefferson, you have a guy who comes in and he's saying his wife is controlling and he can't stand it anymore. He gets to that point where he's able to say that. Some of the things you do, I know I have, is let's take a look at what has been the expectation.
Exactly.
From the beginning.
Yeah.
Because if you go into a relationship because she's beautiful, got a nice shape, I love her lips, I love her hips, and she's saying he's got nice this and he's got nice that, and there's no discussion of how the relationship is going to look.
Yep.
you're fumbling all the way through.
Exactly. And
so
that's
nobody knows
what they're expected to do.
And so
nobody
you're
knows
gonna
what the
do-
position
right.
actually is expecting of them as the person filling that role.
Right.
So I do feel like these are some of the things that make men targets of incongruence in their
Right.
sense of self and deepers that component of depression and frustration for them that leads them into therapy.
It is a point of frustration because you
Yeah.
run into them more often than others.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
That's commonplace where you just almost give up.
But I think also you got to understand men sometimes have a problem with approaching issues and even trying to reach resolutions. Like,
you don't want to talk about them.
yeah, that's what I'm
They-
saying. So that's the avoidance component. So if you
Men
never
are-
talk about anything and expect something different to happen,
Right.
what are you doing? You're contributing to the manifestation of the problem.
They will not bring it up until it's convenient for them to use it against you. That don't help you.
Well, you know, look,
Y'all carry stuff like that. Y'all harbor stuff to hurt a person. You know?
Why is it that you think that women? Do you guys agree with that?
Y'all
Do you guys?
do that stuff every day.
Well, women and men manipulate one another. But the
y'all
thing
not doing
is, no, both people are the masters of manipulation. You master manipulation when you're a
Y'all are
child.
true manipulators of the situation. We can carry the brunt of it, but y'all gonna be the end of it every time. Y'all gonna laugh
because
at
you
the
allow her to.
Hmm.
Because you allow her to, right?
person.
Well, let me ask you something, Kel.
You're gonna pay what you're gonna have to.
Let me ask you something.
Not, you're gonna be out. That's how they go. That's the rule of thumb.
Can I ask you a question? So, growing up when you were a young man, what were some of the things men told you about being a man?
See, that's a good point. Know what that was?
What?
There was no telling you nothing. It's
Okay.
about what you see.
That's the point.
It's the persona, the perception of what you wanted to be.
Okay.
That's the point.
It's the grand illusion, the scheme of things.
Right.
Okay. Because
So we've
you know,
identified the problem. The men have negated their job of mentoring, coaching, and advising the young men as to what is expected of them in
By
relationships.
showing.
Right. And tell them to make, remember I said about that common sense thing? You can't expect for it to be common sense if you're not guiding them and constructing their ideas around what's happening.
Role, but no real man role.
Right.
You know, it's like, you know.
But men train, so men consult and train men how to be a man. We talk.
Show you what they're doing. They can tell you a dream. They can't actually show you what they're doing to get what they got.
Okay.
Like, they don't break it down to you.
Because I look at my husband and my youngest, right?
Right.
His expectation is when he says, "You need to go and get me a screwdriver," that he and Julian
Knows it's a Phillips
knows what
head,
kind of
flat
screwdriver,
head,
and so he would
long,
go up
short.
there in the toolbox looking like, "Hey, what is a
Let
screwdriver?"
me get all of this.
And B, if he has if he know what's a screwdriver, which one? Right?
Yeah.
So then he'd either come in with one or both of them. Or if he come in with the wrong one, there'd be a conversation. Well,
So,
not
but see, that's the
screwdriver.
thing. Yeah, when the conversation happens where you feel invalidated
Mhm.
or doing what you think is expected, but not having clear and concise
Mhm.
communication or
Mhm.
expectations, right?
Mhm.
That's what leads them to that state of confusion.
Right.
And let me address this comment because we're getting so many comments down
Okay.
here.
Well, let's look at the comments.
So Miss Sandy
Somebody
says,
that's way back up, way up there about the fine.
so she said, do you think a person should be able to use mental health as an excuse for their crimes?
No.
So mental health is not an excuse for anything. Mental illness can be used to explain or to justify, states of mind that that lead to criminal behavior. So if you think about it, if we look at insanity, please, right? Insanity can mean a lot of things. There's so many different things that could be presenting. A number of mental issues, mental health, mental illnesses could be presenting that lead a person to an insanity plea. And what insanity pleas ultimately explain in criminal cases is that a person was not their normal self. They were out of their own personal level of functionality that they considered to be norm criteria for them. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, it led to the crime that took place. So what happens is if you're in fight or flight, you're not there. Mm-hmm. Your reptilian brain presents, it takes over. You have zero access to your hippocampus, your prefrontal cortex, or any of that, because that's where your proper coping skills are, and cognition takes place. So without access to these components, you cannot present as your full on personal self, if that makes sense.
And sometimes even if people have a mental health issue, they're still responsible.
Yeah, they can still be responsible for the crime, but when we talk about mental illness, being responsible for their behaviors or their participation in the crime, for example, I'm going to get very, very specific. Acute psychosis, for example. Acute psychosis. Psychosis is whenever a person is responding to external stimuli, appears to be disheveled, and they're dissociated from their current here and now, right? So they are not congruent, to the person, place, time, space, or whatever that they happen to be in. They're completely somewhere else, or they're seeing things, hearing things that are not truly taking place in this here and now that everybody else has observation of. Now, during these times, the things that they may be seeing, the things they may be hearing, or the events that may be transpiring, because sometimes they can be completely engaged in a whole different event, can be responsible for the actions that take place. If we look at what happened with the young man who was the ex-Marine that went in and killed a family of 4, right? And shot the little girl. That is a clear definition of acute psychosis. However, his psychotic features presented way before he even showed up at their door, at the point where his girlfriend was reporting that he was not himself. He was speaking about things and doing things that were erratic and not in accordance with what his typical behaviors would be. He bought $1,000 in cigars to donate them to survivors of the storm because that's what they needed, right? That was the first clear sign. So he should have had some level of intervention at that point. The problem is not enough people are having these conversations to let people know the things to look out for when people are having these issues. Having a conversation where he thought that God was talking to him. He heard God say something very clear that his girlfriend didn't hear, but she was there as well, right? So responding to external stimuli, hearing some voices, auditory, he knows those voices are not his. So it's normal to have self-talk where you're hearing voices, because the voices should be yours.
Your thoughts.
Yeah.
That's very different from your thoughts.
External self getting a deeper connection with your internal congruent parts of self that are trying to present and let you know something is happening or they need something, actionable things to be done by you. So that's very different than me hearing God telling me, LaKeonda, go and unlock that door. I don't care if it's not a harmful. An auditory hallucination is just that. You could just tell me, LaKeonda, you look great today. What? Let me hear something. Listen, if I know you are not supposed to be here, sir, ma'am, get out. Get out. I'm going to get some help right now. Commit me all the way. I'm not here to have conversations with you. We're not here for that. Right. Get all the way out. Get out. You know what? I'm getting out. Exactly. I ain't saying Candyman at all. I want to play those games. None of that. So for me, I think it's really important that we understand what psychosis looks like when it presents. It can look a lot of ways. It looks like you're seeing things, you're hearing things that other people don't take observation of and hear, and nobody else is in the room, and you're hearing things, right? Seeing shadows potentially, a lot of stuff. You could be seeing, olfactory hallucinations, stuff. Right?
There's a bug on me, and you go, "There's no bug on you," and you say, "Yes, there it is. Do you see it?
You don't see all these worms on me, girl. Look, let me go ahead and I got you. I'm gonna call the worm people. 911. We have a mental health crisis.
But these are behavior that have
They
the
are.
potential to have life-damaging consequences.
They are. So that's the
Right.
reason that needs to be your response. That's especially in situations where you cannot contract for a person's safety. You don't know what's going to happen with a person if they leave your site, right? But so let's go to Miss Sandy's next comment. Oh yeah, I answered that one. I thought that was an interesting frame question.
That's
though.
another discussion.
Yeah, but I found that to be interesting in the way it was framed. Your husband allows you to have a male best friend.
Now, was that said by a female or a male?
Nobody knows.
Female.
No, just
Okay.
But I thought that was very interesting because what that says, right? What that I'm curious about. What do you feel like a husband's position is and a wife's position is in a
Which
relationship?
my wife will allow me to have female friends.
Because
Right.
that's going back to the man's role in
Allowing.
our marriage, that he's the one who controls
Exactly.
how things are supposed to be. So that's why you are allowed or not allowed
Or disallowed
to have a
from-
relationship.
Exactly.
With a man. But that's another topic.
Yeah, I think that one is a good one for
Do
for
you think
discussion.
men? What was the one before that? Do you think men?
Oh, do you think
Men
men tolerate unhappiness more than women do in marriages?
No,
Uh,
I bet they're more unhappy women than men.
Well, I think-
toleration is what she's asking
I think
about.
men
I think
can
the tolerance
distance
level.
themselves more because women are more relational. So we have to talk things through. We have to try to figure it out. Men looks at it really logically. What are you unhappy about? I bring home the food. There's food on the table. I give you money. You go buy your shoes. You go buy stuff. What are you unhappy about? For us, it would
You
be
think
I'm
so?
unhappy because.
They
But-
change every day.
But see, that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying.
Right.
So I don't really think it's about males or females to answer your question because, like, specializing in treating couples for so very long has taught me one thing: we can never ever really have a really good conceptualization of who is tolerating what, and there are so many more deep-seated issues that present that are beyond that first session with a couple too. And it's not easy to always address the intricacies of who's tolerating what and when, for how long, because they lose sight of what it is that they're tolerating. And then more importantly, they think it's the surface stuff and it ends up being something way more deep-seated that has more to do with the relationship than the spouse. So it's a lot. I don't think tolerance is... I think in relationships today, modern day relationships, I see more relationships fail because they don't communicate.
That's the big piece.
Yeah,
And that's what we talked about earlier.
That's
There has never been a boundary set up in
Exactly.
the beginning of the relationship of what it's going to look like for the two of you.
because
You just go
here's
in.
the thing: you should have a healthy idea of what you know that you cannot tolerate, you cannot live with, you cannot be peaceful with before you ever go into relationships. Individually, you guys should have that. That should guide and construct your very first dialogue with one another. You shouldn't even get to the part where you're on a date having a conversation about expectations if you haven't covered that. So when people learn to reconstruct the way that they relate to people and connect with people, I think that will resolve a vast majority of the male issues when it comes to relational presentation issues for them.
So we could just move on to the next one too. That's another topic. That's another I want to have topic.
I ask because I hear a lot of women say they get divorced because they are unhappy. I know a lot of men that are unhappy in their marriages and with their jobs. Okay, so
And
people
and the
say-
layers of unhappy. There's
Right.
a lot of layers.
right, and it's a lot.
Because
It's a lot
that
to
unhappy brings up stuff that has nothing to do with the divorce.
Exactly.
There's a
And
lot-
nothing to
it's
do
a
with the
divorce,
relationship.
yes, but there's
even.
stuff buried underneath.
Yeah.
which
self
Keeps
issues.
that, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, that's why I say people should get therapy a lot more often than they do approach therapy or the idea of therapy in order to become more congruent with what's really going on underneath the surface, because there's so much stuff that we can pinpoint surface level and we'll never really know what the issue is. And you find yourself in the same marriage time and time again. You're marrying the same person because the person that you're marrying isn't really the issue. It's about you. And so you have to identify what it is within you you're overlooking, settling. You know what I mean? What about the inside components of you are incongruent to the point where you continue to pick the same person over and over again, and yet you continue to be unhappy?
Same person over and over again, even though he looks different.
Different human being, but same person essentially.
My phone's ringing.
You want to grab it?
No.
Okay, you're gonna be up here having relational issues.
No, I have a wonderful person at home who understands.
Okay.
But they're still married because they feel they should take care of them. That's still surface stuff.
The next one I done that.
Well, that may have that also. There's a lot more to that.
Yeah,
also.
I don't feel like
just
people don't. Family. Yeah, you don't stay married because you want to take care of your family.
I mean, I want to
that's
be alone.
That's the surface level stuff.
So you don't wait to be alone.
That's the surface level excuse that men use, women use in order for them to stay in a relationship that gives them a sense of self-congruence and self-importance and being needed, because they know that if they, separate themselves from that relationship, what they think, right? What they think life looks like, or fulfillment or success looks like, is going to start trickling down, and it's going to look like failure for them. And
I knew I was
right, you would have to face you.
But that's the thing. Yeah, but that's the thing. That's what you see on the surface. On the deeper level, it's more about being a failure and having to come face to face with who you really are. Because the real version of you isn't revealed until you remove all those different layers that you got protecting you, called system, family, the things that you can make excuses and say, like, I'm here for my family, I'm here for my kids. I love it when I hear couples say that. Like, I'm only staying in this relationship for my children. I'm only in therapy for my kids, Dr. J. Like, this is all about them. But wait, did you see what they did? I'm like, yeah. How did you feel about that? You're not going to say anything about that? That does it strike you as uncomfortable, inappropriate, right? So, and they're like, oh, I see what you're doing. You're saying I need this help. I'm not saying anything, but are you saying that you need this help? Like, for me, I'm curious about what makes you feel like that's where I'm going. Because what that signifies is that is what's coming up for you.
Is coming up.
Yeah. Now that's what's coming up for you, that now you do need this help. This is where you need to be, because this is now more about you than it is about the people. And then we start getting to those issues, because now you're aware, right? Now you're aware there is something there. So that process is quite interesting to me.
Child molesters is a considered scum, or they just have a minute?
A combination of the two, because the considered scum the considered scum part is about our thoughts about
the
them.
actor, what we perceive the actors.
Exactly. People are just people. People do some things that are terrible. They do some things that are great. In the grand scheme of things, we make our, overarching.
And when we talk about looking at underlying issues, one of the things you'll find out from people who molest is that they've been molested
as well.
So this is like how life is. We teach people stuff
through our behaviors,
right,
and experiences.
And because that kid never got a chance, because grandma said, forget about it, go wash it off, and we're not going to talk about it. And
they never got a chance to understand it.
They never got a chance to say, I felt powerless during that situation when he walked in the room.
Mhm.
or I didn't like what he did to me. It wasn't pleasurable.
Or
So
even deeper than that, because I don't have a lot of my abuse victims tell me that they felt no pleasure. They
Mhm.
struggle with the fact that it was pleasurable.
And some of right.
So they finally face that truth. And I found that to be very fascinating. However, what they struggle with is the fact that they never got to understand the event that happened to them.
Mhm.
So if you never got to understand the trauma that you experienced and how that happens,
Mhm.
not only for you, but for other people, or why this happens, or how you're not really responsible because now you understand the larger theme of the right.
Mhm.
If you never get to that place, you never get to the place of healing.
Right.
You're still only surface level, which is why I tell people there is a difference between counseling and therapy. So if you want us to play the game of enabling, we can always do counseling.
Mhm.
But when it's time for you to heal, when when it's time to do the real work and remove those feelings, those reactions, the behaviors on the surface as a result of those traumas, therapy is really hard work. And I feel like that's one of the reasons that men typically shy away from it.
It make you think too much about stuff you won't think about.
It makes you uncomfortable because it
Very,
unseats
very.
you in that
Because
comfortable
you
space.
You have to face that uncomfortable feeling.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
And there are other feelings attached to the
They make you
uncomfortable:
wanna
anger
run away
and
straight
rage
Mm-hmm.
and guilt and shame.
Yeah, but all of those feelings are connected to the same primary emotion of pain.
Mhm.
So those are just responses. And in dealing with that, right? What does it mean for us to be angry? What does it mean? What can you do with that? What have you been doing with that? How is that being, conducive for you? It's just so many levels.
Mhm.
So Miss Sandy says, I disagree. I have a male friend that stayed in his marriage because he feels he has to provide for his family and he wants to see his kids every day. I believe he's doing the right thing.
I think he believes that too.
Yeah, me too.
And you know what? If that works for him, because maybe if he
It helps to keep him
deep,
congruent.
right?
Yep.
If
That's the
if
biggest
he
thing.
digs too deep in his soul, he may not like what he see, and then his marriage is gonna have to end.
More important than that, though,
The kids,
life,
and he may have to end his
Yep.
life. Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand that your understanding is of his surface level material, and that's okay.
Mhm.
We don't expect for you guys to get the clinical piece because you're not clinicians, right? But we definitely want to say that there is a reason why there are parts of yourself that step in and tell yourself pretty little lies over the grand scheme of you living, right? So this happens for a reason. In order for us to remain congruent, healthy, functional, at least functional, right? Which is the biggest one. Sometimes internally, the parts of us must convince us that something else is true other than what's really true, and must shield us.
They talk with my kids every day. I'm actually present in their life every day. First a phone call or check in the mail. That made a lot of difference to me.
Yes and no. Emotional on the surface. That's what I'm telling you. So if you were to dig a little deeper, what you will find is that the moment that things started to get more distressing for you, you were no longer emotionally available for your children. If you were to ask your children about their experiences while you were staying the course because you wanted to be there for your children, you'll find out that you never really were there.
Because they may share that what they'll say is, Dad bought me this, Dad bought me that.
Exactly.
But
Dad didn't teach me.
Right. Did he ever say he loved you?
There you go. But
Did
even bigger than that,
me?
Explain to me what life is about. Give me what I needed to be congruent in my marriages. Give me what I need to be congruent in myself, right? There are a lot of things that parents take for granted over the course of their parenting. And I see come out in family therapy all the time. And I hear a lot of men who say, and women, we stay married for our children. And look, my child's an attorney. My child's a doctor. We did the right thing. Kudos to us. Right? And the kids, on the other hand, even in the same sessions are like, no, you didn't even notice when I lost my virginity.
Right.
You didn't even notice when I had my first girlfriend. You know, you didn't even notice when I had my first experience with drugs. You caught on after I had been doing this thing 16 or 17 times.
Or that, it's the kid who was a doctor and decided he doesn't want to be a doctor anymore because he found out that he became a doctor so that he can please you. He could stand up and you can actually finally identify him and see, my God, what a good kid I have. And he never really wanted to be a doctor.
Right. He just wanted to please his parents.
He wanted you to be able to say, I love you.
Yep.
You matter.
Yep.
You're a good kid. And
Validation.
the way to do that is if I become a doctor, which is prestigious in this society, that you would actually give him that affirmation. So it never happens.
So Miss Sandy says, is getting therapy as easy as it sounds? Is there a difference between a female therapist and a male therapist?
We're getting
the truth is about, the truth of the matter is getting therapy is never hard because anybody can get a therapist. Doing the work and healing in therapy is very hard. It's very hard because, we all would love to say that everything that we uncover is going to be pleasant. Life is filled with pleasantries, right? But we just be lying. The realities are life is filled with experiences that we have an opportunity to learn from, grow from, mature into different spaces from, right? Or as a result of. And we make the choice when we decide to heal, to make these things happen for us at the time that we see it's necessary. Some people tie getting a female, like we talked about at the very beginning of this call, this video, we talked about the difference in the way people perceive Black therapists, white therapists, cross-cultural therapists, whatever, right? A female and a male therapist, there is not a lot of difference because at the end of the day, if you have a therapist is a healer, right? And so we're not here to relate to you because we're not your buddy and your friend. That's why you have buddies and friends. We're here to help you identify what's happened, what the deeper seated issues are, to make some second level or cybernetics changes in your entire system that improves your level of functionality in life in general. Because now you're more aware, have identified what's underneath the surface stuff, and you've healed those things because those are the things that prevent you from stepping into spaces where you're more congruent with yourself and your best version of yourself possible. And sometimes the healing part requires you snipping off and pruning some of those relationships that have enabled the behaviors in the first place. So getting rid of some of those friends, getting rid of some of those toxic behaviors, getting rid of some of those family members and their importance in your life so that you can reseat yourself in your greatness. So it's a lot. It's a lot to it.
And therapists have a variety of different experiences. So you could see that the difference between a male and a female based on their experience and what they bring in the therapy themselves. If the therapist is really skilled and good, there's less of her bringing in her information in yours and allowing you to be the person that you need to be by talking about what's going on and taking a look at that and making changes. So, in terms, there is...
But I think that's about counter-transference.
Well, yeah.
And transference.
That we understand those languages,
right,
but
right.
Our audience doesn't understand that language.
So for me, your therapist should never bring in their personal experiences, and that's just period. And the point. And when it comes to healing, a healer does not bring in their personal experiences into the therapeutic context because therapy is about unveiling the layers of you. Discovering the layers of you, and it has nothing to do with the therapist.
And your male and your female therapist gets the same kind of education to know how to do that. Whether they can depends on their level of skill.
And then also their specialities, because some of us have several specialties. Some of us have several additional certifications, continuing educations, and things. There are so many levels, right, to what makes a a good therapist a good therapist, right, to a person, because it's all perceptual, but I think it's based off of competency when we talk about the actual efficacy and outcomes. So,
and it's okay when you meet a therapist, when you see somebody and you're interested in wanting him or her, to ask them questions about
what specific trainings have you taken.
Not so much about their life, because they wouldn't tell you, but what is it you want? Like, is this something you can help me with? What is it you do that can help me understand why I continue to be like this? Your job is to ask questions, and if you're uncomfortable with the response you get,
because I feel like hey, Mr. Brooks, how are you? So I feel like I've had several clients when I'm thinking about, some of the stuff that's coming up when you say that. Like, I've had so many clients be real. They're so interested in my personal life. You have no idea.
Because they don't know what to,
they're like, well, Dr. Jefferson, are you even married? Have you ever been married? You just look so young, or, blah, blah, blah. Wait, you know about that? What? Like,
I get questions about what's my accent.
Right. And if they hear my accent come out, which I have no idea if it does or doesn't, they're like, you're not even Black. I thought you were Black. And I'm like, what? Okay, well, where does that come from? What does that mean for you? What does that signify for you? What's coming up for you? What does that mean if I'm not a Black person? Like, does that matter? Says, who is this young, beautiful seat? This is she is flattered. That's who she is.
Remind me to tell my husband when I get home that I was complimented.
Exactly, on the show, live.
By Mr. Brooks. But no, it's okay. If you want a therapist that you think is going to really help you, you ask them questions about the kind of work that they do.
Yeah, because that's really what's important.
I'm a trauma therapist. Dr. J's a trauma therapist. Huh?
Back then, it wasn't like this. They ask questions and stuff like that.
It's your work. You're supposed to want somebody to fit.
Right. So you would want, so let me make it very clear to you guys, because the thing is, like, I come from the medical side of things. So for me, it's like going to an endocrinologist and expecting them to deliver your baby.
Right. That's not what it is.
You don't want to do it.
Trust me. You're an obstetrician.
Exactly. Okay. Right. So they may know the basic components of an emergency delivery, because as a medical doctor, I was epidemiologist. And so for me, the first time I was thrown into a situation where I had to deliver, I was like, whoa, this is not, you don't want me doing this. You want anybody but me doing this. Because my thing was, I don't have any babies, because I had no children at the time. I don't even like babies. I didn't want any kids. Like, you do not want my hands on your process, okay? Not doing it. They were like, well, you got some basic skills nobody else is here. I don't care.
That's not what I do.
Are you willing to sign a waiver? Look. Like, so literally it took everything. It took an act of God for me to roll my sleeves up and deal with that. And I was like grossed out during the whole process. Trust me. If you're trying to get OBGYN care, you can't go to an endocrinologist, can't go to an epidemiologist, can't go to a general family medical practitioner. You want to go to somebody that specializes in obstetrics and gynecology in order for you to have a experience where that person specializes in dealing with the issues that come along with that process for you.
So look at, if you see a therapist you're interested in, pull up their web page, look at what they do, look at how long they've said they've been doing it, see if that's what you're looking for. And then when you meet, and one of the things you may want to know is that does the therapist offer you a free session, right? A consulting session, where you can ask all those questions.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't feel right for you, then,
And by the way, every therapist should always offer a free 20-minute, 15-minute. I'm just going to be honest. Okay. Typically, it's a 15-minute, but I encourage the therapists that I train to offer 20 minutes, because up to 20 minutes, you're able to review the significant paperwork and give some pretty good feedback as to what it is that person is needing, just kind of surface level stuff. And it gives them a good time to kind of connect with you and your personality to see if you're a good fit.
Yeah.
I think therapy shopping is a great thing. I think that people should do it more often. And
it's okay
You know?
if you're a female to have a male therapist. It's okay
Yep.
if you were male to have a female therapist. I had a male therapist.
me too, I
will
still
not
do.
tell anybody
And he's
his
amazing.
name because he's my therapist. It's been 30-some years, but he's my therapist.
Right.
No.
But for me, I feel like I don't share that information because for
Right.
one, I'm a public figure.
Mhm.
And of course, what happens when you become a public figure is that you're kind of out there. People are already doing enough invading in your personal life and all that good stuff. So it's just about having some space that is sacred and for you. And then also protecting my therapist. I mean, both he and I are trauma-informed clinicians who are who provide services to other professionals in our field and other, professional fields, professional disciplines or whatever. But I feel like he is amazing, right? And I've had female therapists, I've had other male therapists, but I feel like he is great at processing, great at keeping me in my process versus my content, because a lot of people think that just because you're a therapist, you're supposed to therapize yourself. Like, what's his name? Umar Johnson. Psychologize these people. But so we're not our own therapists. It's very important for you to have a space to take off all of those hats, take off all of those letters, take off all of the layers that we walk around with every day, and just be authentically who we are so that we can navigate through what's really going on with us authentically, and have someone else that is highly qualified to sit in that seat and say, hey, this is a thing. Did you notice this? Or is this coming up for you? Like, do you hear this as you're relating to it? Because regardless of how good you are at taking yourself out of the situation, looking in and calling the thing a thing, you still need to be able to process with someone else.
And the thing about when you get into therapy, which your therapist should tell you in that very first session, is that things are going to feel more uncomfortable.
Our producer's looking at us, not the comments. Sorry, y'all.
Things are going. You're going to feel more uncomfortable, more unraveled. Huh?
He posted them real quick that time.
Oh, okay.
That guy out of here.
No, but you actually are going to feel more feelings than you did before.
And Tammy is a clinician as well. We'll have to have you on to share your insights if you want, Tammy. I can post the link too for
people like you and her. Y'all make it more acceptable to go to therapy and kind of introduce yourself to it. Back when I was coming, it wasn't voluntary. You kind of committed or something happened to get therapy. That's what they call a doctor quack and therapist. They rape your mind and they won't about the time you will mess up your brain.
You know what? This is the interesting. Therapists have known for years that people would refer to us as the rapists. Yeah. Because if you look, we have a meme floating around. We have a meme floating around social media where it says the rapist, right? It's okay. We're really okay with it. It's okay. We're not rapists.
No, we're not.
We're not rapists.
We help
okay?
the layers.
Exactly. And the interesting thing, even with psychiatry, because a lot of people were telling me initially,
it make me crazy.
Right.
And she's right. We don't diagnose family and friends.
Yeah, we don't. We may see what it is you're going through. Remember, like I mentioned with my friend, but we're not here to work for free. And we're not here to work with people and have a dual relationship that prevents us from being able to get to your deeper seated issues. Because
and to diagnose somebody, we've talked about this earlier, it's a process.
Yeah, it is.
Doing assessments.
And that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Who's going to be doing that? Not me. Absolutely not. But so let me post because I don't know what he's doing over there, y'all.
I'm over here going through. I'm waiting to get to talking first.
True, that's hurt, but it's also empowering.
It is empowering.
It
yeah.
It is.
When you're in the context of therapy.
Yes.
Because here's the thing, Tammy, that's what I want. And I'm going to post the link just in case you want to come up during this time, because this is kind of like final reflections and thoughts.
Right, because your friend is not going to present the truth to you in a way that you understand yourself for the better. What your therapist does is help you understand that the truth, so that you could know that you're still somebody who's okay and is loved and respected.
Exactly.
Your friend is not going to present it that way to you.
Well, you know, sometimes
Mhm.
the thing is, for me, it's a process. So I've never, you know, I don't believe in very confrontational therapy. I am very experiential. That's my epistemology as a clinician, but very rarely do I approach the confrontation component. I don't,
No.
it's not a lot of need for that, because
Yeah.
the way that my process is it is so delivering for people. That is what I get from most of my clients, from at the end of when they're filling out their assessments or whatever, and they send them through. Like that's the vast majority of the feedback that I've always gotten. Like, man, it's just so, it's so powerful the way that she opens up things so that you can explore and feel safe, and then find these different things out, and then open you up to exploring different options as to how you resolve those issues. And I think for
Even on
me,
your own.
yeah, I think for me, that's one of the things that I'm really good about, because like I have been through this whole therapeutic journey, and I've seen just so many mishaps, and I've seen a lot of people who are very incompetent. I'm just going to call a thing a thing. And incompetency in this field means a lot to me. So it's very, very close and near and dear to my heart and my passion. And for me, helping people heal involves removing the me, right? And empowering the them.
Yeah.
So I don't shrink the mind. I believe in expanding the mind. That's also one of the reasons that I didn't go the psychiatrist route with the MD, and decided to go through all the way from the bottom up, educating myself about this field prior to jumping in and making that transition. So let's see. I didn't see these other ones. So, oh, you mean the producer? You guys have seen his face, by the way. Yeah, his face is at the end of the show introduction.
So if
He's
you
not
see a
hidden.
friend in need of therapy, or that person doesn't have any money, you would just
No, of course not. And for clarification, I do not work for free. Off of the clock is what I said. I do lots of pro bono work. And if my friend is in need of therapy, whether they need a sliding fee scale or they need pro bono services, we make referrals.
Right. We don't see our friends.
Yeah.
No matter what.
But I wasn't coming up though. Y'all was like no.
She says I do. Yes, competence.
Come see y'all well over with.
Tammy, if you click the link, you should be able to create a free StreamYard account with your Google account, maybe, and then come in on the show. You said no, they won't be left to suffer. And here's the thing: therapeutic support, right? As a friend, we talked about that. Is very much different than providing therapy. So, for example, when people are, she said, "I am in bed." Okay,
it's a good place to be.
Yeah, but when people are going through their process, and their what do you call it, grieving. When they're grieving and you're grieving, right? You're holding space, just as a lay person, as a friend, as a family member, whatever. Doesn't mean that you're providing therapy for them. It means that you're holding space for them to let you know what it is they're going through, and you're supporting them, whatever they need emotionally. That's very, very, very different than the job of a clinician. And I like
a little supportive counseling.
Yeah. So you see a lot of people talk about that, and they're like, oh, well, I get therapy from my homegirl. I get therapy from my grandma. Okay.
I have a sister who says I gotta call my shrink, but she means me.
Right.
No,
You know? Yeah, I
I'm
know
not your
she's gonna
shrink.
process.
No.
Right. So says my answers to my friends and never.
Right.
Exactly, Tammy, because we have
Mhm.
to, we're not a clinician by default. We are
Right.
people. Right. So I talk on my show all the time about controversial issues, right? Do you think that I'm opinionated at all in the therapeutic context with my clients? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
They have no idea
Yeah.
what I'm thinking.
Mhm.
And it's not my thoughts and my reflections on their process are only provided in the therapeutic context and where they're needed.
Mhm.
So the thing is, the way that I feel about the things that happen in the world have nothing to do with examining the clinical lens of what's presenting in people or issues, etc.
And that's why we go to school. And that's
Exactly.
why we get training so that we learn how to do this work
Yeah.
and separate ourselves
And protect
understand how to separate
us.
ourselves. That's right.
Yeah, we have to protect our peace. And that's a really important thing to do. So Miss Sandy, I think, is crushing on the producer.
Did she still want to see him?
Turn your camera on,
Girl.
producer. Come on the show.
Let me get.
Okay, you can always turn your camera off when you come up. Turn your camera on. I'm gonna pull you up here. I have to add you up. You just pressed it. Press it again. You see how dark it is over there? There you go, Miss Sandy.
We can trade places for a hot second so you can
Yeah,
see
you
that
wanna-
handsome guy.
Producer's like, where
Absolutely.
I'm not getting on there. Like, you know, she can get on there
Absolutely.
looking any kind of way, but I ain't doing that.
There you go. There you go.
So, but yeah, you know, I feel like here's the thing. For me, I feel like people have got to start addressing the fact that there are a lot of issues that men go through on a day-to-day,
Mhm.
women go through on a day-to-day. And for me, it's all about providing space for people to navigate whatever issues they present with.
Turn my camera off.
What'd you say?
He turned his camera off. We couldn't tell
I don't know. Let me see.
Oh wow.
because his screen has always been black, so we couldn't tell.
What?
Yeah, you can turn your camera off. You don't have to have it on, Tammy, if you join. Yeah, come on, bring your thoughts in. But so for me, it's all about holding that space, creating that space for them to feel very comfortable in navigating whatever the issues are that present. And then helping them identify what's underneath all of that stuff, right?
Right.
Sorting through the complexities of it, re-exploring places they find themselves revisiting in the same with the same energy, as I say.
Right. So that when they leave your office and they move on, they're able, because these issues, by the way, will always sort of come up in different situations.
Mhm.
They're now armed to be able to address it without the fear, the guilt, the shame, right? Or the repetition of whatever they've been thinking of themselves.
Right. And here's the thing. One of the things that I found to be really interesting is that when men are trying to get involved in therapy, what I found to be really interesting, the show in the background for you.
Oh, wait.
That when men are
Mute.
trying to get involved in therapy, what I found, or I think I turn it off, right?
Wait.
Okay.
Mute. Where's mute at? Oh, there it is. So can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
No. Y'all can hear me. I can't hear y'all.
You can't. Turn your volume up on your phone. Are you on your phone or computer?
I'm on the computer. That's better.
Okay, so you can have your volume all the way up on your computer. You just have to turn the show off in the background.
Turn.
Feed.
Oh! Right. I'm like, where is it coming from?
I don't know what the technical term.
Okay, is that wait a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, right here. Okay, is that it?
Yeah, you're good now.
You're good.
Okay. Hi, y'all. I'm from Tennessee.
Hey, you said you're from Tennessee?
Yes, Nashville,
Right,
Tennessee. Been in therapy and doing therapy for quite a while, about 25 years, 25 years.
Okay, cool. About dang, y'all about neck and neck.
Yeah.
For me, it's only been almost 15 years now. I was a medical doctor for 23, so I've transitioned.
Wow.
Now,
Really?
This is different.
It is. It is a lot different.
It is.
But the medical background helps so much, I'm sure.
It does. I'm an integrative practitioner, so I integrate the neuroscience behind the diagnostic component and help people bring everything congruent, because a lot of what the theory does is it's great, right?
Right.
It's great to theorize, but it's better when you can see a thing and call a thing a thing based off of the
Come on.
images and the labs and stuff like that. So I do a lot.
Yeah, you remember how excited I got, and I was like, "Where you been?" I mean, Jefferson. She been in these streets, and I ain't know it.
It's hard. Like I'm working hard out here training clinicians.
I see,
and getting them together. It's a lot. It is a lot.
I'm so proud of you. I mean, I was just like, "Oh wait, hold on, we got to connect."
Definitely. She's like, "You doing everything, huh?"
Doing everything.
Yeah,
leave some room on the table for me, girl.
I always plenty of room for us all. That's why
it's plenty.
That's the thing, right? Sue?
Yep.
I tell them, like, hey, it's plenty of room for everybody to do what it is and be great in that capacity and help with all of the need. There is no reason to do the whole crabs in the bucket.
No reason.
Yeah, so we get to it all. I got a training at that academy for clinicians.
I have got to come.
Coming and that'll be October 1st. So it'll be a lot of stuff on there, a lot of resources posted for clinicians, and it'll be an easy way for them to sign up for trainings, because I do like a little private practice clinicians boot camp thing. I think it's really cool.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, you guys have fun, right?
You do.
Yeah, nice. I work them hard, but it's worth it. And in the end.
The training that I would love to do, and I think is needed, is on past suicide prevention.
Yeah.
What do you do to assess? You see a lot of people passing it on, to a crisis center. No, we assess, and we should be able to determine that. So I see a lot of clinicians not prepared for that type of situation.
I agree. I do have a training on that. I just finished the training 2 weeks ago.
I have to go to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I would love to.
Yeah, you gotta go ahead and hit your follow button. It's a follow button on my main page, on my practice page.
I think I might have. If I didn't, I'll go back to it.
Yeah, because then the updates and stuff will come through. My admin typically takes care of all that stuff, because the social media stuff is a lot harder than I would.
It's a lot. It is.
Being on like YouTube and and all of that stuff it's newer.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot to manage, but I use
I
want to make sure I'm putting out as much free information as I can.
Yes.
For people to find themselves to be more congruent with who they want to be and align themselves with their purpose and passion in life, because there are so many things that I think are missing, especially in the Black community.
Oh my.
As far as resources.
But you know what? I think the Black community is growing custom to getting help and reaching out, and I think we still have that same tag. But I tell you, my practice is full of Black people. I think we're getting better. We've moved forward.
I think that some parts of us is getting better. I think what's
not getting better, Dr. Jefferson?
I talked earlier about competency, and when I talk about that, it's a real huge thing for me. I think that if Kevin Samuels were not good for anything else, I think that he was great in identifying the incongruencies and the lack of competence in Black female clinicians. And that was a difficult truth for me to face him have.
I don't know if I took that from that. So what do you say about Black female clinicians? Because I'm a clinical beast.
So go back to how long ago was that segment? A couple of months. A couple of months ago, I did because I talk about accountability issues on this channel. And when that one was brought to me by a viewer, I was like, oh. But I will talk about the elephants in the room. I'll talk about and address difficult things. I'm really, really big on calling a thing because avoidance to the perpetuation of cycles that are unhealthy behaviors for us.
And if you don't, they will.
Exactly. So when he had that interview, when a clinician called in Kevin Samuels.
Oh, what happened?
I think you were on that one. The girl called in, she was a clinician.
And what did she say? She was giving misinformation.
She was giving her story. It was her truth.
What was that? I mean,
help us.
So she was using it as her therapy.
Well, even worse than that, because
Lord, I can't hear no more.
Yeah, people call Kevin Samuels for advisements, right? So why would a clinician
call a non-clinician?
Well,
person known to be as toxic as that guy is, and I don't think that there is no place for him, because I feel like sometimes these young people need to be reeled in, and sometimes older people too. But
what is his name? Kevin Sam? Maybe I'm thinking about the wrong person.
No, you're not.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Haha. I see.
Yeah.
Influencer. That's the buzzword right now.
No.
And
I was just about to say, you have to understand his previous title was what was it? Fashion designer, no?
Oh, but they're all over. They're all over. It's a couple of different people that are giving out. And I inboxed one and said, don't use therapy in your post. Please don't.
That's the buzz.
That is, inappropriate, and you could be sued. I don't know if he could, but I've just said it. We will have our lawyers on you.
Go look that up for one.
The Godfather.
Go look that
up.
Look,
Miss Sandy says Kevin Samuels. Miss Sandy is a true Kevin Samuels follower. Okay.
He's Godfather. Okay.
Well, he probably has a place, but if he does not have a clinical degree, he probably should just be a life coach.
There you go.
No, but I don't even know. I'm not saying that in a negative way at all. I am not saying it in a negative way.
No. We agree with you.
Yeah.
But not even a life coach.
Not even a life coach, because they go through. But you know what? It is tons of people doing tons of things and giving out some solid knowledge. But when you start talking about clinical matters,
right,
I just don't understand how you could. Yeah, no, you can't do that.
But it's a lot. It's a lot about the material and the content and the females that call into his show and the males that call in his show that say that there is a great need for the work that we do. I will identify that, and I will call that thing a thing, because I do notice that the need is great. And if anything, he's shown us that. But competence.
Well, a lot of times people don't come to. I know you said that I'm not confrontational. I put it down. I said what it is, because I think by the time you get a certain age, if you don't know, somebody should have told you by now. You know how those people be trying out for American Idol, and you be like, "Girl, you can't sing."
Girl, listen.
No, but they don't know.
Listen, you're 35.
No, they know they think they really think they could sing.
Yeah, they really
somebody who should have said that song really horrible said, "Okay, that was nice."
Right.
Yeah.
But so I do think that there is a need for him. Okay, so I've never said like,
yeah, there is.
There was no need for him in general. I think that there are needs for different perspectives, and we have to have different perspectives in order for us to grow. And all of the negative content that he puts out,
Oh, it'd be negative, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh
It's a
Lord.
lot. It's a lot of it. But you know,
I'm
sometimes
gonna have to go look at his. I'm gonna have to go listen because I call it out.
God,
I call a spade a
he
spade.
does.
all
He
day.
feels guys the same way, and it was interesting to me. I saw for the first time. I saw some of his conversations with men before when people first sent me his content to review, but I've never seen one where he was so invasive on a man. Like he asked the man, "How big is?" He said, "You got a big." Do you have a
No.
big dick? Do you have a big dick?
No.
You don't.
No,
know
he
you have a
didn't.
big dick. I'm
Well,
like,
that's men talking. Why were you surprised?
no.
That's
Listen.
men talking.
It was the approach. It was the facial gestures. It was the mouth movements. It was a lot of stuff for me.
But that's men talking. We don't.
That's a man right there telling you. We don't ask nobody.
No.
Men don't ask. They just look. Is that what it is? Because then you start to compare. Because then you start to compare. Is that what it is?
I can see it myself, like asking them.
Wow.
You can see mine, I can see his.
Yeah, they go to the bathroom and the urinals right next to each other.
We got on great sweatpants.
They would, yeah, they would never say anything about that.
Oh, really? Well, yes, obviously they didn't.
Kevin
Obviously
Samuels
he's
is a
a
different
sample.
breed.
Wow.
That's really dangerous.
Kevin Samuels,
out there.
we'll see what he embodied in that moment. I think is what feminine energy. If you look at some toxic behaviors in the Black community, right? And I'm real quick to call it what it is. With our young people, hypersexuality is a really huge issue.
Yeah.
But also the way that our young Black women approach conversation about sex and men's penises and things like that. Meg Thee Stallion, Cardi B. Even
wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Cardi B.
You gotta look. All the same thing.
Wait a minute.
Music too, but listen, it is what it is. So
you know what? It's different expressions. You know, people express themselves differently.
Oh no. Oh no. So we have some toxic behaviors, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to call that a thing. But even if we decide to continue to engage in that toxic behavior as a man who is a content creator, what I feel like we do is we put him in a place to where he has to be willing to go in those very uncomfortable spaces for men.
Absolutely.
And you can tell that he was a bit unseated. You could tell from his body language.
And he moved on.
When he was asking, and his mouth, like, it's a lot of stuff. But you could tell it made him a little uncomfortable to approach that. And you know,
it probably should have.
He was like asking a man when he asked him his height and asked him his weight. He was like, the guy was like, he's 5'10". Then he said, okay, so how much you weigh? And the man was like,
what?
Look, so Kevin Samuels interrupted. He said, to what?
He
said, oh, you a fat fuck. So you gotta be
like, oh my.
I swear, like,
I haven't heard.
Make this up. I literally spoke the transcript.
You don't think men talk like that?
Oh, I know men don't talk like that.
Donald Trump did.
No. Donald Trump said grabbing women by the pussies. That's very much different than asking a man about his penis. Yeah.
He questioned the guy. Yeah. I mean, he didn't say ask one time.
The issue is, do men talk like that?
Men talk about no. So you're missing the point. Women talk about penises. Men talk about vagina straight.
Obviously not, they don't.
Now, I know a lot of gay men who talk about penises.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. So. Now, they don't have a problem with saying we talk about penises and vaginas. Why? Because they call a woman fish, and they even refer to some men as fish.
Have we gotten that part?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like,
we've gotten that comfortable.
Look.
So maybe this is indicative of who's saying
this is modern day men and women.
If he's
I just
what is he saying?
Right.
You know, I haven't been.
Yeah, but I'm not
Cardi
sure.
B, y'all need to stop mentioning Cardi B.
Cardi B said,
wish, okay?
What she said.
Cardi B
she motivated me. She said, wish.
That dangly thing in the back of her throat or something.
Who thinks of that?
Wow, I never.
Who thinks of that?
I was like clutching my pearls, literally.
She did.
I know. I
was like, oh my God.
Lord.
People do say that because if she did, somebody thought.
I hear you.
She made a song. Listen. She made a song entitled the song "Wet Ass Pussy."
Wow.
Well,
So
that's what God made.
society-
That's what.
right. So I felt
I
like
mean-
society, especially Black society, that was out here
Condones
saying
that kind of stuff.
exactly, especially ones of us saying we were uncomfortable by Donald Trump saying grab women by the pussies, right? How can we say these things?
Right.
We can't say it if we're making songs entitled, not just
Mhm.
saying the word, but the song.
Yeah, it was a
title.
shocking song.
Making videos.
It was a shocking song, but you know she had to outdo Anaconda with Nicki
Girl.
Minaj.
Girl, look.
Kind of thoughts and
These
reflections.
young people,
They just coming up with it all.
Yeah. So I think that
Uninhibited.
I think that Kevin Samuels does address and bring
Uninhibited. Yeah.
So the thing is, if you're a woman who is looking to be married, and these are the types of behaviors that you are
Right.
right.
I don't think
You have
women.
to understand what kind of husband you want.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think they understand that that's what they're going to attract.
Right. Well, because he presented as it's okay.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't know.
he presents it like it's okay to do. Gotcha.
Yeah, he'll present that there is a market for women only possess a sexual marketplace.
But you're going to outgrow that in about 5 years.
That's the
Oh.
thing.
It's going to be a new flavor coming up.
No, because it sets you up to think that you could be as promiscuous as
Exactly.
you want to be. And
Exactly. Yeah.
And you wouldn't get diseases.
And also
need
that
love
the
and
value of a
appreciate
man
it.
and the value of a woman lies within their sexual marketplace value or their financial status. And
And
there's
it
much more to
dismisses,
health
it dismisses them.
And that's abusive because you're reducing the person to their
Yeah.
physical organs.
Exactly.
That's
Because
abusive.
you know, and this is what I want to say as a sex therapist.
Abusive
Uninhibited.
Sexual or uninhibited?
Yeah, that was most modern men feel about the modern woman.
What do you mean? Bottom? What do you mean? Men for generations have been uninhibited.
That's why we feel y'all in, because that make y'all.
They thought they was keeping it a secret.
Right. I'm waiting on the connect. Like that's what we feel because no.
There's no submission in that. Because there's no end game.
There is no submission where it is that you okay.
Did
So
he say submissive? Did he even use
Right.
submissive in this? Is this 5-second conversation?
but look,
Submissive?
here's the thing. So submission comes when a man is properly seated in his
Thank
provider
you.
protector role.
Exactly.
That mindset.
And
that
He
mindset
doesn't have to
goes out
ask
the
you
window.
to submit. You already want to.
Exactly.
It's not an argument.
Yeah, women have a natural tendency to submit to a man that is worthy of
Absolutely.
their submission.
Right.
Women will
That's
not submit to a man that's not worthy.
That's right.
He won't submit, or he'll evade that. He'll cope down.
Okay.
No, he won't. That's not true. That's not true. Men
It's
will
coming
remain
from a man.
toxic.
It's coming from a man.
You
Whether
forget
it's
it's
healthy
coming
or
from
not.
no, it's coming
Whether
from
it's
a
a healthy
man.
thought or not.
No, it's coming from a man who has not pursued women like most men do. Now, I deal with
Woo.
men every day that are having these toxic behaviors where they're
Yep.
still in these relationships with these women, and they don't divest from these women. They don't.
No, they don't.
They can still get sex from her. So why would they divest?
Uh-huh. And it should, and if she's not giving you sex, you have to look deeper into the physical. Either he might be having some problems. She rule out medical. We do that already, right?
Mhm.
But if she's not, then something is wrong with the marriage, the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go circle around and figure out how to repair that.
More importantly,
Your
what is it about
partner
you?
image.
Yeah, what is it about?
Yeah.
What is it about you, and what is it about her that needs work before you guys can come back?
That is it.
Be
Yeah.
physically,
And it's an ongoing, it's a, people don't realize it's constant work.
It's lifelong.
yeah.
It's constant work. Every day you get up and your feet hit the floor, you working.
I feel like okay. So here's my thoughts on that. I feel
Uh-huh.
like a healthy marriage is without any noticeable work. I think
Well, whether you call it work or whatever you call it, you have to put into it. We won't call it work. It has to be seated.
No, for some relationships, I don't want to take it off the table.
No, I wasn't.
The vast majority of relationships, as you mentioned, are work. But you have to ask yourself the question: if it feels like work,
Right.
Why am I here?
and what-
I wasn't using it in that sense, but I can see how it could be taken that way.
Yeah,
I'm
because-
saying, yeah, you have to put something into it. You can't go to your actual job and not put something into it and expect a raise.
Well, I don't know. Do you
Well,
feel like, so for me as a clinician, even in private practice, I have several contracts with different hospitals and a lot of stuff going on, but I'm never really working. I'm pursuing my
Well,
passion.
But
everybody
what you
does
said
to your
in the
level, Dr.
beginning,
Jen.
right? And when part of the reason people end up having so much issues in the relationship is because they never started a relationship. They just went into something. There
Exactly.
was no discussion
And they
of
waited.
your boundaries, my
Yeah.
expectations.
Right.
There's none of that.
But I think-
halfway in between, you start to see stuff unraveling because what you're doing is not in line with what I want 5 years down the line.
But I never said what I wanted.
Right. We never established that in the
Right.
beginning.
Yeah.
That's why
I think-
that's why there's counseling before you get married. There's
Exactly.
a reason for that.
Exactly.
So that
And I think we're saying the same thing, but we're using different
Different
wording.
Right.
Because I'm not saying that it should be hard.
Yeah.
no, I understand. What
I'm
you're
saying that it has to be,
Fair.
you grow. You have to grow together.
Absolutely.
You have to have constant conversations. You have to spend time
Oh,
together.
definitely.
You have to, you can't go a month away from the relationship and not think that you're not going to have to do some adjusting when you
Right.
come back. I'm not saying it should be hard because it shouldn't. It's a partnership.
Yeah, it
But-
should
and
be
both of
anyway.
you would understand if you take that month away, what's going on? What's the
Well,
Well, I
for
don't
work.
know. I mean, I took
I have a couple right now that
Yeah.
they work. He's a whatever, some kind of adjuster where they have to go contractor where they have to go off for some time.
Yeah, I used to sometimes be gone physically gone for
Yeah.
8 months.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
So it is, it is what it is. But I think we still had a very healthy marriage because for us,
Not saying you,
we
yeah.
were doing what it is that we wanted to do.
You had already
Yeah.
established
But
from the
when you
beginning.
came home, it's just something you just got to get adjusted back to having the person back around, even though you talked on the phone every night or FaceTimed or whatever you did. You're in the presence, and I missed you. I have to reintroduce myself.
Yeah, I think that physical part is definitely needed because
Hmm.
yeah,
But hopefully he came out, or
like
you
you
came
said.
home, or
we had all
whatever.
these kids because we weren't adjusting.
Yeah,
So
here you go.
the
Now here
only
you
thing
go.
we're adjusting to
Right.
because everything else is very much in sync.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I would have preferred to not adjust.
I heard that.
But
I
no,
heard that.
in all seriousness,
No,
I
the
just
little one, he can now the junior's gone. The little one can always come. Him and Jasmine.
oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna just drop him off,
And he wouldn't mind one bit.
Oh yeah, he wouldn't. As long as he can run around and do whatever he wants instead of car
Absolutely, he
shops
can.
all over your place, he's good.
He'll be fine. And Jasmine.
And that's what and that's what I don't understand. You have to have time apart as well. You have to have things to do that's not a part of the relationship,
Yeah.
but you definitely have to keep growing, placing seeds on your side.
Well, I think the way that I do it, I actually have my own model of therapy for couples and families, but the
What
way
kind of
that I
therapy?
explain it
Mono.
it's what did I call it? Growth and maturation cycle of
Okay.
relationships.
Yeah,
But
I like that.
what I do is I help couples understand that the relationship in and of itself is a tree, whether it's your family
Right. Oh, yeah.
or a couple relationship. And you are still remaining very, very much separate individuals on the outside because
Right.
the idea of becoming one is the thing that most couples struggle with because they don't understand that you're not supposed to sacrifice self
Oh.
for the sake of your partner. Being in a relationship that's healthy is not about making your partner happy. It's about being congruent in your role in the relationship and paying attention and attuning to the relationship in the capacity that you're expected to do so.
Right.
So it
And I re-
removes those unconveyed expectations of, well, you need to treat me like I'm treating you because I treat people the way I want to be treated. Instead, it invites a conversation for how do you want me to
absolutely a
express my love
conversation.
to you?
You.
Right? What do you need from me? Right?
Right.
And
I think for a lot of women, we think men are just supposed to know.
yeah,
And they don't.
Yeah,
And
the
men-
one that takes care of it.
Yeah,
Whatever
and men
that
are
I'm taking
men
care
are
of
the
you.
same way. Men think that women are supposed to know.
And we don't.
It's always inexpressed communication and
Mhm.
expectations that cause the demise of relationships.
Mhm.
So helping people to get to aligning themselves properly and pruning those parts of the relationship that need to be is something that happens definitely during the process of therapy for me. But I think over the course of my own relationship as well, it's always been like that. It's all
Right.
about us being there for one another in a supportive context
Yeah.
that we need each other and systemically respecting our roles individually and collectively.
Come on.
Mhm.
So I
You
think
know.
that that's the thing that keeps relationships healthy and keeps people from falling into these spaces where they feel
Oh
invaluable.
my.
Right. If
Right.
you start expecting him to take care of you and you to take care of him.
Yeah.
you
And
will-
if it's not coming across like that, there's something wrong. You know, you can't be jealous. You can't, you can't not encourage the person to do, what they believe they should do. It's just lines that you don't cross out of respect and love.
But also, what does respect look like?
Right.
Yeah, for
And how
That's
do
what
you
you'll talk about.
understand each other.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Because respect is different for all of us.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So that's something hopefully you've talked about or you are in the process of ongoing conversations, maybe.
Never. Human beings don't do
No.
that. You're talking about a different kind of animal now.
Mhm.
Human beings don't do that. Okay.
But if you work up being in line with each other, you don't need to do that.
No, well, I think
Well,
you still need to do it, but you don't.
Well, you know what? The
That-
example I always give, when we work a job, we expect an evaluation, an employee evaluation, at least once a year, right? Sometimes twice.
But bring
Yeah.
it down even. But you got to bring it down even more minuscule than that.
Well,
You
you got to
work
start
a
you got to start at a level where they,
Well,
to
they've
get it.
shown you what the expectations are by
Well,
listening. Right. They're gonna
Okay, we
list
started
the
real
duties.
hot, but I'm just
They're gonna
saying.
list the duties and tell you what they expect out of you. That's the part that's missing for relationships that are intimate partners.
And not having the ongoing conversation if that changes too.
Right.
Yep.
Because we grow.
Yeah.
We know more. I hope I have grown from yesterday and learn some better tools.
Exactly.
And that comes from thoughtful conversations and putting down the defenses. Because
Yeah.
I read somewhere, I was doing some studying, and I read this article and I said that first lie you tell, your marriage is in trouble. The very first lie you tell. You need to be honest all the time.
Exactly.
It needs to come from a place of respect, love, and this is who I am. Authenticity, transparency.
So wait, you gotta think about it. You just mix some very dangerous things in the same fire.
Go ahead.
You're trying to blow up a relationship. So
This
the
is-
thing is,
listen.
honesty does not reside where
With
the preference is respect and love. If you put love and respect there, honesty don't live here anymore.
how you say that?
I'm gonna be
I don't
honest.
know.
I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna break it down for you
Yeah, break it down.
because respect equates to honoring the vows that you took.
Mm-hmm.
So if you broke the vows that you took, how can you be honest if that means
You're
that
not gonna break them. I'm not talking about you break them. That's a different story.
Yeah, but that's
I'm
what I'm
talking
telling you. That's where it starts. So the
What?
lies come out of breaking those vows. When you say, for example, right?
Mhm.
I think the Bible is probably the best reference, simply because it's easier for us to put that there, right?
Right.
What's the first commandment?
Love thy neighbor. Yeah, but did I get it wrong?
You got it wrong. Thou shalt not
Listen.
Number 4.
Wait a minute.
lie.
But I'm saying you haven't lied, you haven't cheated, you haven't anything. So
But that's the thing. So lies are perceptual. Truths are perceptual.
okay, you getting real deep. Wait a minute, hold on. Let me back
Yeah,
up.
that's what I'm saying.
Let me back up real quick. Perception.
with couples, right? Perception guides understanding and truth. So you have to understand, even on the individual level. So you cannot convince a person that they've told you a lie if for them this is true. Because people have the innate nature to come up with their own ideas.
No, wait a minute, they do. But we're putting the foot forward.
Yeah,
we're
but that's
putting
what
the
I'm
foot forward that you know that you're not trying to lie.
So you're not trying to, but you're still going to do it.
Wait a minute. What are we lying about?
It's not
Does
about
that matter?
lying. It does. It does. Intent is not important. Have you ever been face to face with a person that thinks you're lying to them?
Every damn day. Listen, every day. No.
Listen, Linda.
Right.
You ever seen a black person get pulled over by the cops?
Come on.
Have that cop try to explain how they were a racial profile. You're gonna learn today.
You gonna learn today? Yeah.
Okay. Because a black person is gonna argue that white cop down because to them that white cop is white, but that white cop may not be white. He might be Hispanic, but he white today because he got light skin. He might be black, but he white today because he got real light skin. Could be albino, who knows? But you white. Yeah. And you pull me over, you were racially profiling me. And this cop could say, I got a whole black family that I came from because I'm black.
Wow.
And that black person is going to say, nope, you were racially profiling me. You blah, 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 blah. You racist and all that. You can't convince a person of your intentions once they have already made it up in their mind that your truth is not your truth because you are already lying before you even say anything. So perception is why I enter perception into the conversation because our perception guides and shapes our understanding. So if we do not have a perception that is skewed, we can now move into a place where we can receive a person and try to understand them from their point of view. But their point of view, it's not important to us. We've already done the human thing. Yeah, we've already done the human thing, and we have a idea in our head that is the truth.
Well, wait. Okay, wait a minute, because I'm lost.
So, what I'm saying is, if you're preoccupied with respecting a person, right? And let's say respect means that you're just gonna placate. Most of the time, that's what it means.
Oh no, you gotta go. I don't need to be placated. Go ahead.
I'm going to be honest, but a lot of times you do, and you don't even know that's what you need. When Kevin Samuels talk about women have a need to be right,
I don't.
He has a point, but it's not about women. It's about people. People have a natural and an innate need to be right because they're otherwise. Why are they even having a conversation?
And when my couple sits down, anybody, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? And anytime you want to step that first, because I don't want to be right anymore, ever. I want to be happy.
People will say that. People will say that. What does happiness
got to do with being
right? So what does happiness have to do with it, and what does being
because
right do for
just what you
happiness?
Just what you said. People lead with perception.
Yep.
You know, and if that's what you lead with, and that's what you say, guess what? I'm not gonna argue it. I'm happy.
So I'm not gonna argue. It doesn't lead to I'm happy. Right. That leads to I'm going to shell it, and I'm gonna be further disturbed because you ignored me, didn't give me that.
Yeah, y'all talking about somebody with a personality disorder. Y'all talking about a narcissist.
No, that's people.
These are y'all hanging around with.
No, okay, never mind. Whatever. Okay, you said it fine.
These are human behaviors. These are innate human behaviors.
Wait a minute. You don't even have to tell them you're not. You just change your approach.
That's the thing, though. When you manipulate and change your approach, right?
You said manipulate. I don't like that word.
Because manipulation is a part of the process. Every
conversation. I know, but that sounds. I mean, the word just sounds like you about to lie.
Well, let's do this. When you remaneuver yourself in the conversation, okay. Let's reframe it. When you remaneuver yourself in the conversation, what happens is You have to move away from your previous said consciousness.
And I agree.
So
and
the things that you previously held, the ideals you held that's so true, that were
Yeah.
important to you, you now still have to shelve them. And
but
if you
they
have to
become
shelve
less
them,
important to me. They are not important.
there you go. So
No,
you just
they
said
are less
that's
important to me.
That means you
Because
felt
you're trying to
invalidated.
be right.
Yeah, that means you feel invalidated, and you're firm.
No,
with your agenda.
I don't. No, I don't feel invalidated. I'm making the decision that it's less important to me. They're not telling me that.
Okay, so how is it that you're making the decision? That it's-
Because I've been on this road before with this person, especially if it's my husband. And honestly, I already know him better than he knows himself.
See,
Oh.
see, that's what I'm saying. So think about it. If
Mhm.
you're on this road with your husband, and now you've decided that this is less important, and you have
To me.
made it
To me.
yeah, right. You've
Because
made
you know
it
him
your
better
mission to now make
No,
his idea more important than yours. That is
no, I didn't.
placating.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I just don't want it to
She knows
become,
him more than he knows himself.
Yep.
and I already know how this is going to play out.
But that's still
No.
placating. That
It
means
That
that
is not.
you're giving him
That
what
may
he
be
wants.
how some people feel, but I feel empowered by it because I am controlling.
Oh no.
myself.
Placative behavior doesn't mean that it takes your power away.
No, see, you keep flipping my words. Let me say, look, let me go to this dictionary.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
If you know,
I am just saying it is not taking
You
anything
already
away
made
from
that
me.
assumption.
you have created the situation so it does work out the way you
Exactly.
anticipated how it's gonna work.
And hey, what's wrong with that?
That's manipulation.
Yes, well, you call it what you want. It works for me.
But that's also the purpose of placating. That's what I'm telling you.
No, y'all, no.
We can go
I
on
think
and
that-
on.
yeah.
How when they say, let me use another analogy of what I'm talking about.
Do
Do you know how they say it's really the stronger person who can walk away? I don't have to stand there.
So walking away from a conversation doesn't mean that
Not a conversation. It turns into an argument.
Okay, so what happens if you're arguing and you walk away? What happens?
I am just leaving it right there because when you argue, nothing gets accomplished. I'm leaving it right there. I'm not saying I won't pick it back up.
Okay, so at the point where you started arguing, what turns things into an argument where it's hostile enough for you to walk away?
What turns it into an argument is I already know that I disagree with whatever is being said
Why do you disagree?
because it's not true.
For
to
who?
you?
For me, okay, it's for me. I am just saying I don't want to spend my valuable time
Mhm.
going down the same road. And I wouldn't. I mean, so what would you do in the situation?
Said that you're going down the same road because it's another argument.
Exactly.
So
Okay, so what would y'all, okay, so model that for me. What
So
you would do?
For me, in a situation where I see the argument has elevated to the point that we've become hostile and now we're screaming at each other,
Mm-hmm.
I immediately reposition myself so that I can understand where that person is coming
That's
from.
manipulation.
So
No.
You
yes,
said
it is. It is. No, it is.
yes, it is.
It is. So you're manipulating the situation to bring yourself to a different state of consciousness.
And that's what I'm doing. I just do it
Yourself,
differently.
right? So instead of walking away and saying, because we realize that in order for us to get to that place, it's about emotions. We
Okay.
feel a certain way as a result of certain emotions of feeling invalidated. And
I
that's
agree.
okay. It's okay for you to say, I currently feel invalidated. So I need to understand what I am missing in the other person's message that makes me feel this way.
And it's also okay for me not to handle it that way.
Because even if we were to fold a piece of paper, that's us manipulating the paper.
Absolutely.
So moving yourself and moving other people is still manipulation.
I just don't think,
what's going on.
I just don't think that is a one size fits all. I think
It is what it is. We're not saying that it's a bad thing to placate.
I didn't say, yeah.
What we're saying is that we do placate because it's a necessary thing in certain situations in order for us to bring ourselves to a place where we finally get answers. But if we find ourselves placating and staying completely away from the conversation,
No, you pick it back up when it's on. When you thought about
self.
Yeah, I think once it gets to a screaming match,
Mhm.
That's just egos playing against each other. You know, nothing gets accomplished.
Yeah, but you're right. But
Right.
egos don't come anywhere where feelings are not.
I understand.
So we have to first, somebody has to be, like you said, the bigger
Able to
person.
stop.
That's what I said.
Recognize what is happening. And if you recognize what's happening and you reposition yourself to now listen to that person, because what happens is in those situations, the person just don't feel validated, and neither do you.
Mhm.
So that's the reason that the screaming matches exist.
Well, they might not feel validated, but this coming out is feeling not validated. But it's really, I want to get away with this lie.
Is it though?
I don't know. It could be.
Or is it that
I just think when you say invalidated,
they're
I
true?
just think you excuse whatever might be going on when you say they feel invalidated.
Not
We both feel invalidated.
Yeah, you both feel invalidated.
Mhm.
That's the purpose of the argument. Yeah.
Because you're not
For different reasons. For different reasons.
Yes.
I think some people use that. That term for me, man.
What? Lack of validation?
It's excuse. Yes, it excuses, because I don't think everything is a lack of validation.
Really?
I don't. No, I don't. I don't.
Okay.
I don't think that every single thing is lack of validation.
mean for you?
What I didn't hear you.
What does validation mean for you?
It means that I value it as a person. It's important to me, right?
No, validation just means that that's a truth for you.
That's important truth. Okay.
Well, I mean, some truths are important for us and some are not. Like for me, I got a lot of truths that come out of my therapy. That shit ain't important.
I understand.
I'm dropping it as soon as I leave therapy with him. I'm like, what?
And I think that's why that statement is so powerful for me.
I don't care about white walls. I'm going to sit in
I know that's right. All the time. And it never ends up where you want it to end up. But I think that's why that question means so much to me, because it's saying I'm choosing to go think about it. And for right now, we can remain friends for the night.
But you can remain, yeah. So your friendship doesn't have to be tainted.
I know. Y'all be wait.
What if you
Of course I know that.
Of
course I know that.
You are not going to think about
But I say that. But I say that it's just
you're gonna be thinking about it, all the negative side.
You're in a relationship, even in a friendship. That doesn't mean the friendship is over. It means that I'm no longer in this conversation. That's the only thing I mean.
Okay, so what happens? Have you ever been? So how do you feel when you're trying to talk to your child? Because I feel like that's the easiest one for people to understand better. If you understand the child-parent expectation, then you can understand the basic respectability politics of having conversations. So how do you feel if you're having a conversation with your child and your child walks off and closes the door and locks it behind them?
Of course, I will feel like I've been dismissed and minimized.
Why?
Because and I'm not saying that's how the interaction would go, right?
No. I'm asking because I'm going somewhere with this.
Oh, okay. Stop jumping ahead. Okay. Why would I feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was done disrespectfully.
Why?
It was you didn't tell me, okay, right now I'm gonna go in the room, I'm gonna slam the door when I go in, and please don't bother me. You know, you didn't.
What if your kid said that? It's still, this is you and your kid having a conversation. You said this kid's 4.
I would respect it a lot more than him just doing it, because you explained to me what is going to happen and why.
Okay, so how many people watching right now would agree? Well, how would you guys feel? How would you feel, Kel?
You walked away.
Yeah, your kid said, "Mom, I don't want to have this conversation. Dad, I don't want to have this conversation. Right now. I'm going to go in my room. I'm going to close the door and lock it. Don't come after me. No bother."
I knew that was coming. Oh, Dad. Because what you want is the kid to stand there and listen to you until you are done.
Right.
But it is not always, and I would not disagree, but sometimes it's not always that easy.
So it's never
you can make them do that.
Yeah, it's never that easy.
Yeah, it's not that easy.
But I agree with that part. But you have to understand that in relationships, right, the expectations around respectability politics and conflict communication, they must be conveyed. so that we have a clear understanding before we find ourselves there, before these behaviors present themselves. So your child could have learned from one of their friends that this is the way that I resolve conflict with my parents.
Or saw you on his dad.
And said, you know what, this shit works. I can get her to shut up. She didn't have to tell me I can't go with my friends. I'm just going to sneak out the window while she doesn't come after me and close this door.
The different part is hopefully, we know that parents know their children. And my child would, no.
Let's say, so this is a younger kid, 4 years old.
4. Okay.
Yeah, 4 years old. Some kids at 4 years old, parents really think they know them, but somehow those kids come up missing. How do you think that is?
They come up missing.
Yeah. How,
like what? Dead?
Check the news stories, like missing.
Oh my God. because they ran. How did they come up missing?
Investigative reports show that the child got out of the house by way of the window or the front door. Unlocked the front. 4 years old. Walk the fuck out of the house. Like, what we doing? What we doing?
You know, I remember that.
Yeah,
my oldest son, when he was 4, and I think I set a limit on him. He went in his room, put on his little jumper, put on his slippers on the wrong feet, and packed his bag.
Damn,
and
he wasn't going on in that house.
Auntie's house.
Yeah.
And then he opened the door on the step waiting on his auntie.
Yeah.
He never called.
But most 4-year-olds can't even reach the doorknob.
But he was mad.
A lot of 4-year-olds can reach the doorknob.
No. But my 4-year-old ain't, because I'm short. I'm 4'11", so he ain't gonna be able to reach the doorknob.
You barely made midget height.
He packed his bag and was on the steps waiting on her. It dawned on him and he didn't call her.
Good God.
Come get it. But he was mad at his mom. Packed his, I don't know what was in the bag. I never knew.
Who
had
thinks
it in the backpack?
in the mind? I heard a child have a conversation. I told you she was 3 years old. The one at daycare told the lady that the daycare worker she needed to take a day off. Like I'm telling you, these kids have a lot more sense than what you think. But their observations,
they're very intelligent these days.
Right. So their observations of the way that you resolve issues with your partner that's ideal modeling behavior for the way they behave with you. Believe it or not. And so when they
have you seen the little small clip of the little boy? It's like a 30-second clip, and what you get from it is children do what you do, not what you say.
Yeah.
Well, the kids act. There's no secrets in family because your kids act it out.
They do.
they will
definitely act it out.
And I even in the womb, they know that they feel something going on.
Oh,
yeah, they do. That's
so
their attachment or attachment incongruency.
Yeah.
I talk about it all the time, for mothers who really had to ponder on whether or not they would keep their pregnancy or not. A lot of those kids end up with a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder by the time you're 17.
What study done? You're going to have to show me that study.
Yeah.
And what percentage are we talking about?
Yeah, attachment theory. Go back and look at the
attachment theory, but borderline personality disorder?
Attachment theory is right in alignment with borderline personality disorder diagnosis and also attachment.
Yeah.
I would have to look at that closely. I'm not saying that some do, but I wouldn't leave it out.
No, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm sure.
But so. Oh yeah, that's like we gotta wrap the show up. But yeah,
look, we done came and spent another 30 minutes with reflections.
Right. So here's the thing, you guys. I think that more men need to. I won't say submit to. That's a terrible word to use.
Respect, acknowledge.
Acknowledge.
Allow.
Not acknowledge, allow some space for them to explore whether or not they're dealing with issues that qualify for a mental health diagnosis and mental health treatment. And we talked about different ways that mental health treatment looks. In the very beginning of this video, we really went in and delved in and dissected all of the different types of help that you can get within this field. And I think it's really important that men acknowledge, especially Black men, that in order for you to be the best version of yourself that you can be, you got to make sure that you're mentally and emotionally congruent and well.
That has to start when we are kids because we talk them out of it real quick. They don't have nothing wrong with them.
Yep, that's what I mentioned. But I think that another component to that is that women have to understand when they need help too with their mental health and emotional health and behavioral health. So when we recognize that we need some help navigating the various difficulties of us just remaining our best version of ourselves, we can get the help that we need that aligns us with supporting other people that need their help, and then also encouraging them to go and pursue the same direction.
And I think we need to really put out there, just because you see someone like us does not mean you're ill.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it doesn't. Well, it doesn't have to constitute that there is something wrong with you. That's what I like to say.
Right. I like that.
We don't have to be. We are not the mental illness. Okay. Yeah, we are not. When you go to the doctor and you have a heart condition that has been identified in your test results, you don't walk around saying, "Hey, I'm a heart condition."
Yeah.
You know,
you're watching that because language matters. Language matters.
Right. So the thing is, you have to understand that lots of people, your mental health is as important as your physical health. And it's really important for you to tie the two in together, because for every single diagnosis that is in the DSM-5 and ICD-10 combined, or 11, we have tests that can, are congruent with what your brain is doing.
Evidence-based, right.
And so we can look at your brain. fMRI scans tell us where holes, punctures, incongruences with flows of oxygenation and things like that are, that align with the diagnosis that you are assigned. So it's really important for people to really get in touch with the parts of them that acknowledge maybe something is going on. So those are my final thoughts. Kel, what do you think? What do you think about men going to get help assessments for mental health?
Better as society has, a little bit easier. Like accept your platform, what people have introduced it. It's more known now, nationally, worldwide. You get more acceptance. So it's coming around for younger people. People my age still gonna struggle with it because we have been stigmatized about how it used to be versus how it is now. So we haven't made that adjustment yet. So we only go feel if it's a necessary must-do component. It won't be voluntary. I guarantee it won't go voluntary.
Good God.
Let somebody happen.
That's rough.
I mean, that's just where we at, because you don't see yourself like somebody else may see you. So you can always be combative. Think of the answer. Right. Like that. Nothing just say, well, you might be right. That's all you use.
Now, I have seen, I will say that men and women alike in the Black community sometimes have to be forced inpatient in order for them to
court order.
Yeah.
1013.
Yeah, they're 1013 here, and once they see me, they're like, the first visit, I gotta see you, because like if I don't, they're gonna put me back in that place. I'm like thinking about
not
if I could help it.
But yeah, like my kids put me here, my brother put me here, my wife put me here, my cousin put me here.
No, you and your son.
And so not you. So, but once they kind of get into it, even the court mandated clients that I see, they start showing up more frequently and on time than my kids coming to me self-reflect. So I find that real interesting, because they're like, oh my God, like I gotta make my sessions. You know what? I thought that you was gonna judge me. I thought that this was gonna happen and that was gonna happen.
Never. I can be you in 2.3 seconds flat.
You know what I mean? So
too uncomfortable.
I can't. No.
It is uncomfortable. I think therapy is a very uncomfortable place for people who
it's supposed to be. That's what elicits change.
People have a different expectation of what they think it's going to be like.
Yep.
And what they expect. They expect if they go in and address, the fight with my wife, that's just it. And it will be fixed in a week and we'll be just fine. And then they come to realize that there's a whole lot more than that.
Wow.
It's a lot more than that.
Yeah, and I want to encourage people not only to get the help they need, but be realistic in your expectations, not only of therapy, but also of other people and what you expect for them to give to you, and that sort of stuff, because I feel like that has a lot to do with us keeping ourselves emotionally healthy.
Agree.
So that's all I got. Those are my final thoughts and reflection. Tammy, do you have anything you want to add? You want to tell them how to get to your website, how to get help? She is in Tennessee, So if any of you are watching who are who's in Tennessee and you need a clinician, tell them your specialty areas and where they can find you so they can get help.
So my name is Tammy Hines. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I have a practice called Bellevue Behavioral Health Group. We have 3 locations: Bellevue, Dixon, and Antioch, Tennessee. Within our group practice, we get several referrals, but me personally, criminal justice, forensics is a specialty. Domestic violence, substance abuse. I love those, and women's issues.
I thought that was interesting. What do you think is we should come back and do a women's issue segment because we talked about men's issues in this video.
Yeah.
Common issues that present in men, and it was interesting because I talked about
how your drive us crazy. Okay.
But you know what? The realities are, I'm not gonna lie, over 1,000, over at least 1,000 men that I've seen. Literally, I can say a lot of their issues that drove them to therapy had something to do with the women in their lives.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the women, the mother, you know. Then as you go along, you mimic that.
Yep. It is interesting. I think that's always.
And I want to start a group because right now what I'm seeing is single mothers who give their sons, gotta have everything. You gotta teach them some empathy. Go take them to do some community service while you up here buying Jordans. You know, go teach them that this is not how life really is. You work I can't say it. You work hard to provide for these kids. And they don't appreciate it. Not in a bad way.
But they don't know to appreciate it because they haven't been taught that there are levels to life and levels to achievement and levels
absolutely
to earning. So I think it has a lot to do with the amount of work that we put in as mothers and fathers in because it's not just single parent homes, it's also dual parent. And to be honest with you, those co-parenting systems of divorced parents, they're even worse.
Oh my God.
So oh my God.
Competition. I'm in one right now. I'm like, Lord, how did I get in this case?
You know, it gets.
I'm about to go crazy if I get another email from a lawyer.
You know, but so I want to thank you for coming on to the show and
thank you for inviting me.
Definitely
nice meeting you.
It's nice to meet you too. Y'all was impromptu, honey. Impromptu.
Yeah, we just get things done around here.
Okay. I was coming over to bring her some food.
And
pull up the chair next to me.
I got you too.
Like, oh, you bamboozling me?
I love it.
Girl, I'm pulling you right on in.
I love it.
But yeah, we are in Georgia. Feel free to stay in contact. I'll definitely let you know when additional trainings and stuff like that are coming up. But also feel free to jump on and chime in on the issues that you feel resonate with you, either personally or clinically, and talk about them on this channel because we talk about a lot of things. A lot.
Oh, I know, because I've been in the background. I'm like, Lord.
Yeah, we
a lot of stuff. Great content.
Yeah, thank you, and feel free to kind of shop around and see some of the content that we reviewed on this platform. We've talked about some.
I already have, Dr. Jefferson. I have.
Yeah,
Dr. Jefferson.
Good guy. It's rough, huh?
It
is rough. Like I got a lot of stuff. I have such a wide array of topics that come my way, and
you be talking forever. I'm like, she can. Baby.
Who you talking about? Like, because if you don't, and on the short ones, on the short videos, people are like, "Oh, you didn't cover this for me. You didn't cover that." I'm like, "Oh my God, talking points." So,
right. I've enjoyed myself though, and I've enjoyed watching the shows.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So that's all I have, you guys. Go out there, be great. Don't impede on nobody else's peace. Protect your own peace. And don't hurt yourself because the producer's about to mess something up over here. 100%.
You got too much toys in here.
But so go out there and do your best to be a positive imprint on someone else around you. And if you cannot be a positive imprint, if you can't be a positive contribution, please don't disturb nobody else's peace out there while they're trying to be positive. Okay. That's all I got. Later days. Bye.
That's our final word.
Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I whip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bunny. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.